Capitol building is like, forget about it. It's ridiculous and nice. It's gorgeous. Pristine.
Donnie Brasco. You ever seen that movie?
I have, but it's been a long time ago. I recognize the
Italian.
reference.
They're like, forget about it.
Oh,
Forget about
I
it.
do say that. My whole family.
They're like, because he's like an undercover FBI agent with the mob, and they're like, hey, tell me about this. Forget about it.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
Forget
it
about
could mean this, but it could also mean
It's like,
that.
no,
Yeah.
I don't want that. So forget about it.
He's like, but then it could also mean, yeah, I remember that scene.
That lasagna? Forget about it.
It's like, it's good. It's like really, yeah. Oh, Donnie Brasco. Yeah. I thought you said Roscoe. I'm like, I don't know that one. That's a great movie. Al Pacino and Johnny Depp. Yes.
That clock was off.
That's what it is, yeah.
He wears eyeliner.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. I'm calling this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 22nd. It's 9 a.m. We're in the John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. Thank you. Hopefully that's God answering our prayers out there with that thunder. Okay, Ms. Allison, could you call the roll call, please?
Of course. Mayor Norris,
Here?
Vice Mayor Panieri,
Present?
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Here.
and Councilmember Gambaro is absent.
I didn't hear.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll open today's meeting with public participation. You'll have 3 minutes. We have 30 minutes allotted for public participation. Please refrain from any defamatory comments. And if you would, please silence all devices at this time so we don't interrupt the speakers. So if we have anybody for public comment, please come forward. Yes, ma'am, Miss Jeannie, I'm sorry.
Good morning, Jeannie Duarte. It's clear that we have demonstrated that the City of Palm Coast does not have the properties properly zoned for the 5G cell towers. It is a county issue if we do not have the proper properties for that. Plume, I had to look all that up and learn about it. The Plume is a landfill. Who in their right mind approves a project, a waterways project, going through a landfill or having to go around it? Why would somebody come back after a plan's been done and ask for $1.5 million knowing that there's a plume, a landfill? And if we didn't trust that they knew what they were doing when they planned it, why would we trust that they would actually go around it? So I have a big problem with the $6 million project there. And before you sit up there and say, I don't care, understand that this is not a triangle up there. This is created as an hourglass, and you're squeezed in the middle. The ones who pay your pockets are the citizens. They're the ones that are your bosses. So to stand up there or sit up there and say, I don't care about one person's house color or one person's this or that is not correct, it's not proper. And to have grown men that made a vote for something to allow one person to come in and sway their vote and barge in on a vote that had already been done, and they can't stand by their original vote. What's going on with the sway in here? It seems to be a pull of influence. There's a lot going on here, and it's incorrect. It's not proper. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Webb, you got anything? Yes, sir, you have something? Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name's Alberto Rivera, and I live on One Riptide Place. And a few days ago, I found this on my garage door. Then I received this through certified mail, return receipt requested. Then I received this as regular mail. So I decided to call the number in this documentation. This is in reference to my boat being on my property while I was cleaning it up and getting it ready to go to the water. My boat was there for 4 days. And I got all of this. Her answer was, the state of Florida demands that we do this. Well, that I know, the state of Florida doesn't demand that every town not have their boats on their property. And if the state of Florida is demanding that each citizen receive this via 3 fashions, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. The lady who answered me, who said her name was Dawn, sat there and said, that's all I know, that's all I can tell you. I find that, quite frankly, unacceptable. I find it unacceptable that we can't communicate with each other. The same guy who came by and put this on my garage door could have knocked on the door and said, you've got to move your boat. I moved it the next day when I found the sticker on my garage door. I moved it back to where I had it. Of course, I did not finish cleaning it, and that's not fair for me. The second question that I have is, what is it that I need to do to address the ordinance that says that we can't have a boat properly stored on our property?
It's not a question and answer, sir. You just do your public comment, and then we'll reference back when we do our comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. Webb.
Mark Webb, Palm Coast.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, I know that there's people present and people listening with the understanding there may be some conversations about the e-bike issues in Palm Coast. Is that going to be addressed or brought up? The news isn't suggesting that there's an ordinance or some conversations going on. I don't see it on the agenda. I don't know if that's something being addressed now or in the future. But I just was looking for clarification in that thing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Webb. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Anyone on the council have any follow-up to any of the statements made by our constituents? Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask if the city attorney can address the e-bike situation.
Yeah, I believe it was last meeting, council gave direction to come back, give presentation background on e-bikes. I've been working with the sheriff's office, general counsel, drafting a preliminary draft ordinance. So we are working with them right now, but nothing has been presented today, but we are getting that on your agenda when we have enough, information to present to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duffy. And maybe the sheriff can bring forward some more details on that. You got anything else, Mr. Miller? Councilman? And absent on that one. Sir, I'd like you, Miss, the communications, could you please link him up with Miss Barbara Grossman as far as the boat? Oh, Tyner can handle it? Okay. Mr. Tyner, can you help this gentleman right here? Sir, go see Mr. Tyner right there. He can help you out with the boat. And I can't say this, as far as boat storage on our properties, that would be, you would have to solicit the council. Those are our current ordinances. That's the way they're written. All right, thank you, Mr. Tyner. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to presentation number 1. Flagler County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, welcome to the city of Palm Coast. And the mic is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. And yes, I do have a little part about e-bike when we get there that we'll discuss in there. I'm Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley. And just to remind everybody, the Sheriff's Office is the largest and only full-service law enforcement agency in the county. We provide all your police services for the city of Palm Coast. We also provide it for the town of Beverly Beach, town of Marineland, as well as all the unincorporated areas. And we support, when necessary, the Flagler Beach and Bunnell Police Department, although we do not provide their primary response services. We provide all court and detention services in Flagler County, and our jail is the Sheriff Perry Hall Inmate Detention Facility, which more commonly known in the community as the Green Roof Inn, because it has a green roof. And it has a capacity by law of 404 inmates. We currently are averaging around 200 inmates a night in the jail. We also currently operate the 911 Center in Flagler County, which answers and dispatches all 911 and non-emergency calls for police, fire, and medical services in the county. There are more than 400 full-time and volunteer members of the Sheriff's Office. Your Sheriff's Office is a 5-diamond accredited agency. We are accredited by the Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, of which I had the honor of serving 6 years on that commission, 1 year as chairman until I termed off. Florida Corrections Accreditation Commission, and actually the jail chief is a member of that commission. The Communications Center is accredited. National Institute of Ethics accredits us, and the jail medical is also accredited. Just to look at some of the numbers in 2024, we served 125 children with Shop with a Cop, thanks to the support of the community and the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. We made 3,203 arrests last year. We handled almost 112,000 calls for service. We conducted a little over 21,500 traffic stops, so I'll put that in perspective. That's 1/5 of your population that gets pulled over. Now, generally, you know, that's a raw number, so it's not all 1/5 of your population, but it's the equivalent of that. We arrested 162 drunk drivers. We have 367 full-time employees. We have 90 volunteer COPs that do an amazing job for this community. We issued 27 boating citations. Of course, we pulled over more than that. We investigated 3,225 crashes. Our sworn deputy sheriffs are 251. K-9 was kind of busy. They had 521 deployments. Not very many dog bites, but 521 deployments. And of those traffic stops, we issued 6,021 traffic citations. But what I find interesting, and I just want to bring up, is, you know, 112,000 calls for service, but the Communications Center answered almost 145,000 calls. So many calls for service create multiple calls in the Communications Center. Now, this is a look at traffic fatalities. Traffic fatalities were down in 2024. Thankfully, they were down to 15, which is still 15 too many, down from 25 in 2023. And for the most part, state roads are the majority of where our traffic fatalities occur, although we have had it occur on Belterre and Palm Coast Parkway. But other than that, they were generally state roads. Now, I think it's important to understand the causes of these crashes. So what we are seeing is aggressive driving, driver impatience as traffic gets more congested within our main arteries. Drivers become impatient. In fact, I pulled over a car yesterday. It became impatient, decided to pass on a double yellow line. I didn't like being behind the dump truck I was behind either, but he didn't realize my car is an unmarked car, but he soon found that out. But that's all because of driver impatient, those kind of things. Distracted driving, actually 60% of our crashes are caused by distracted driving, whether that's on the phone, reaching for something, dropping something, just not paying attention. Speed obviously is an issue, and DUI. So how do we reduce the crashes or fix this? Engineering is a big part of that. The roads need to be adequate for the growth that is occurring and the congestion that we're seeing. Educate the drivers. Enforcement, laws and ordinance, I'm going to talk about that, and proposed e-bike ordinance. Now, I'm going to show you a news story that was just played because we are getting significant complaints on e-bikes. And Florida law changed 2 years ago that changed e-bikes from a motor vehicle to a bicycle, which means that they are supposed to follow the bicycle laws, okay? And there are limitations in the statute on what is defined as an e-bike. So it has to have the ability to pedal, it has to have speed limiters, and if you're 16 or under, you're supposed to wear a helmet, okay? But everywhere I go lately in the community, I have people come up to me, what are you gonna do about the e-bikes? Because they're walking, they're jogging, these things are quiet, and they zoom by and startle, people that aren't on bikes. So I think it's important that we discuss that. And then I think it's part of my role as your chief law enforcement officer for the city of Palm Coast, that when I see issues brewing, that we bring you solutions. So, but what I want to do is show you this video, and I want you to really key on the very end, because it is a prime example. And I didn't know this reporter had got it till I saw it on the news, of the issue that we have of the e-bikes flying off the sidewalk, going across the road, and cars are turning. Now, they're supposed to get off. By Florida law, you're supposed to walk your bike across the intersection. But none of them are doing that, at least that I've seen, okay? So I'll show you this video real quick. Watch the very end. You'll see how close it came.
Well, a high-speed chase involving two teenagers on electric bikes here in Palm Coast, it has led to a proposed ordinance.
Yeah, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office is now trying to put a stop to reckless driving on e-bikes.
Spectrum News 13's Brandon Spencer, he was in Palm Coast all day for us and is joining us now with an update. Brandon, what have you learned about the bike culture there in Flagler County?
Well, the folks I've had a chance to speak to told me that more and more people are actually hopping on e-bikes here in Palm Coast. Now, e-bikes are supposed to abide by the same traffic laws as regular bicycles, but with some of them able to reach super high speeds, the sheriff here wants to ensure everyone can stay safe. When it comes to getting around Palm Coast, e-bikes seem to be the new fad.
Well, it's pretty fun. Obviously, you can't go that fast on a regular bike.
Skylar Scott has had his e-bike for a couple of months and says they're a blast when you use them safely.
With this kind of bike, you can have passengers, you can have these things. With a normal bike, you can't, and you can get to where you're going much faster.
But when you don't, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office says they will find you. This body cam footage from July 2nd shows an FCSO deputy chasing down one of two fleeing teenagers on an e-bike, taking him into custody for eluding law enforcement and fleeing with disregard for safety and property. Sheriff Rick Staley says reckless driving has increased since Florida law changed the classification of e-bikes from a motorized vehicle to a bicycle 2 years ago.
So they're classified as a bicycle now, which means they're supposed to follow the bike laws, but they're not. And so they're on a walking path or a sidewalk, and they're quiet, and they come zooming up behind somebody and then swerve around them.
All things that can be extremely dangerous and lead to serious injuries. That's why Sheriff Staley is bringing a proposed ordinance to the Palm Coast City Commission in an effort to reduce the dangers.
It requires helmets, it requires them not to do reckless behavior on them, to pay attention basically. And if you are riding it reckless, we can impound your bike. And you'll have to pay a bunch of fees to get the bike back.
Because he knows the dangers, Scott says he has all the gear necessary to be safe and believes the sheriff's proposed ordinance will give Palm Coast the e-bike restrictions they need to keep everyone out of harm's way.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good thing to have stricter rules about e-bikes, not having people just cutting through the intersections, not wearing helmets, not having proper protection. I think it would be a good idea.
Sheriff Staley says the bikes that took his deputies on a high-speed chase are more like e-motorcycles because they don't have any pedals and they can reach speeds of up to 70 miles per hour, but his ordinance would apply to them just the same. He's set to present his proposed plan to the Palm Coast City Council at their Tuesday workshop at 9 a.m. Reporting live here in Palm Coast, Brandon Spencer.
So you can see how close there was almost a crash right there. We have had one traffic fatality involved in an e-bike. In the last couple months, we've had a number of other crashes that have occurred with not serious injuries or no injuries at all. And so my general counsel drafted a very rough draft of a proposed ordinance. It's with your city attorney now. It's not ready for prime time yet. But it's a good basis to work from. And I'm not trying to kill the fun of an e-bike. I have an e-bike in our fleet, if you will, for a deputy that patrols town center. So there are reasons for that, not just for fun, you know, but for work and people that may be disabled want to get around. So I'm not looking for any ordinance that will do that. But Florida law, since they loosened it, e-bikes have become somewhat out of control. And not by everybody, probably a small percentage. And those are the people that we need to educate and enforce. So, like I said, it's not ready for prime time yet, but I would ask that you encourage it because we need to get ahead of it. Now, the sad part was what the legislature did, and at some point, maybe the legislature will come back because these are unintended consequences of their change in the rule, is that you potentially are going to have hundreds of different ordinances across the state. Every city is allowed to create an ordinance. Every county is allowed to create an ordinance, which means that somebody rides an e-bike and they take it somewhere else, they don't know what that ordinance says. And so it'll be a hodgepodge across the state, which is not good for anybody. So hopefully the legislature, with enough comments and pressure from cities, counties, sheriffs, police chiefs, because the minute that piece or one of the others aired, I had another sheriff call me, say, will you send me that draft ordinance because I got the same issue? And it was in a very small county, Bradford County. They called me to our west. And so this isn't just a big city issue or a small county issue. So anyways, I bring it to your attention to kind of set the base on why it's here. Okay. All right, just to let you know what we've done with traffic. So you can see in the bar graph there, the total crashes 23 versus 24, and the crashes were up last year. Since 2017, I've increased the traffic unit 213%. When I became sheriff, there were 5 motorcycles. There's now 8 motorcycles and 8 Mustangs. Hopefully, none of you have met any of them in there. But they're very dedicated and they work very hard. So we do take traffic safety, and every patrol car has radar. Which wasn't the case before. The quality, one of the highest quality of life complaints that we get is traffic, especially in neighborhoods. So a few years ago, we put radar and trained every deputy. State law requires they go through a 40-hour training course before they can use the radar. It's not the way it started when I started my career. Anybody, here it is, here's how it works, go out and enforce it. Now it requires a 40-hour course. So there's quite an investment between the radar units and the training to be able to enforce this quality of life issue. So now I'll move on to, you can see despite the growth in population, crime continues to fall countywide, and obviously you're the biggest city. So that includes your city. I don't have data that specifically breaks down Palm Coast, only because the new reporting standards through FDLE and the FBI changed everything. And it's now what they call National Incident-Based Reporting System instead of the Uniform Crime Reporting System, and it groups Flagler County together. 92% of the residents, this is your own survey. You do a professional survey every other year, not an opinion. I guess to some degree it's an opinion, but it's an official professional opinion survey. 92% of the residents felt safe in Palm Coast. They felt the sheriff policing services were good or excellent, 82%, which means, you know, we have some room for improvement. And the people in the front row, John Welker, Chief John Welker, he runs our operational services, the green and whites that you see driving around. And then the guy in the white shirt with the tie is Chief Augie Rodriguez. He runs investigative services, which you consume most of his services. And then in the middle is Kenny Calvis. He works with, he's a commander of the Palm Coast District, works in conjunction with Bernie Woodward, who you see probably every day or close to it. And then on the far end there is Shana Stankowitz. She's my chief bean counter, and we all need one of those, okay? So I challenge them, you know, we need to increase, this needs to be closer to 100%, quite frankly. But I'll accept the 82, but I won't accept it forever. 78% rated crime prevention, either good or excellent in the city of Palm Coast, and I just recently added another deputy sheriff to our crime prevention because it had been Commander Mike Lutz, who most of you have probably seen around giving presentations by himself. So based on this survey, obviously the community wants more crime prevention. 81% felt safe from property crime, and 79% felt safe from violent crime. Now here's the dual-edged sword for being a transparent sheriff. I tell you what's going on in this community, and so the community now thinks that violent crime is up, property crime is up, but I can prove to you it's not. But it's always about perception. So even though a crime is down more than 50% in the last 8 years, the perception might not be because we tell you what's going on in the community. And so that's a double-edged sword of doing that. We didn't make these numbers up. In fact, we didn't even know they were occurring until we found them published. USA Today names Palm Coast second best Florida city to move to out of 30 in Florida. They picked Gainesville #1 and Daytona #7. I don't really understand the #1 and #7, but you know, I'll take number 2, I guess, for now. And 15 safest cities in Florida, Palm Coast #2, only beat by the Villages. And then the overall crime grade for Flagler County was an A. And for violent crime, it was an A+. So meaning, you know, that's where you want to be, okay? This is the Sheriff's Office budget, since this is really about budget presentation. You can see that your share that you, through your contract for enhanced law enforcement services, is in the light green. The Board of County Commissioners is funding almost everything else. The city of, the school board does pay a share of the school resource deputy cost. This is a breakdown, oops, wait a minute, did it not go forward? This is a breakdown of the per capita cost compared to Flagler Beach and Bunnell in the sheriff's office. And so what you pay per capita is $101.28 per capita. The sheriff's total budget is $448 and some change per capita. year 101 as part of that 404. The Flagler Beach residents are paying $549 for their police department per capita, and Bunnell is paying $611. So my point there is that you have the best deal of anybody in there. If you look at this chart, this is per capita cost of law enforcement services of similar size or nearby law enforcement agencies. Again, you can see that we're at 448, which is the lowest between Putnam, St. Johns, and Volusia County. Their residents are paying significantly more than in Flagler County. And I think this is this is looking at sheriff's offices that are similar size. So Sumter County, Indian River County, that have similar populations in their counties compared to the sheriff's office. So again, we provide the services at a much lower per capita cost. I believe in getting grants back and bringing money back, because all of our residents, everyone on the dais, myself, we all pay taxes. And it goes somewhere else in many cases, to the state level or the federal level. And I believe in getting as much money of that back as I can. And in Shayna's operation, she has a phenomenal grants person that works with our team, and we apply for every grant we can find out there to try to bring it back. So in fiscal year 2025, $2.6 million in grants we brought back to this community. And these are things that enhance the law enforcement services or enhance our ability to turn inmate lives around, that without these grants, frankly, we wouldn't do it, because we couldn't afford to do it, and neither would the taxpayer want to support it. As you know, the population of Palm Coast is growing, and these are the Palm Coast population projections, and you can see the growth is here, and we have to deal with it, okay, and the projection is there. I want to talk quickly about the historical staffing levels between the Board of County Commissioners and the City of Palm Coast. So the Board of County Commissioners has said that they will do a standard level of law enforcement service countywide, which, by the way, I've never heard of that done in any other county. In fact, it's usually not done. But I put this slide up here because I think it's important for you to understand that you're kind of paying a little bit for the sins of the past. Because there were 13 years that the City of Palm Coast, even though they had a contract for enhanced law enforcement services in the city, 13 years, the councils at the time chose not to add any additional deputies. Your staffing that you added is in the yellow. The green was added by the Board of County Commissioners. So I think that's important to know, because we did that study, and then we've had the joint council county meeting on where we are today, and we're in year 2 of that 3-year catch-up plan. So of the budget for you, for the city, for your enhanced services, I'll just explain it. To maintain existing level of services is $797,000, and here's what's included in that. So 2% COLA, contractual step increases under the contracts with the deputies. The FRS adopted retirement rates that started 7/1. So by the way, I'm having to find this money out of my budget and out of what you pay me for the current fiscal year, and you're not being charged for this increase, which this increase is hitting my budget about $400,000 just for 3 months. The total increase, because the state says, okay, you're an FRS member and here's what you got to do. You have no choice on that. In my budget next year total is $1.2 million increase just on that line item. 15% increase to health insurance premiums, and full year of funding for 4 deputy sheriff's positions that were funded this fiscal year, but only for 6 months. So to maintain that, it's additional funding. So that's what's in that. For the additional 9 deputies, it's $1,800,000. $89,000. 5 of those new deputies are funded for the full year, and again, 4 are funded for half a year starting April 1st, which means that when you go into the fiscal year 26-27, you will have the same thing that you had right now for the full funding to keep them. So that brings you up to date on what's new and what the cost of existing services are. Just to give you an analysis of what the sheriff's budget is completely, the increased cost to existing personnel is $3.847 million. That's the COLA, the FRS rates, the health insurance, and the CBA contractual obligations. Now, it appears, now the county commission has not voted on this yet, but I believe they will vote on it in August, that the way the 911 center operates right now is that the county owns the building, the county owns the equipment, the radios, the CAD system, computer-aided dispatch, the records management system, the 911 phones, and the non-emergency phones. In other words, they own all those pieces. The only thing they don't have is the people, which work for me, but yet we're dispatching for every entity in the county. And so after reviewing the Stoneman Douglas Commission, they recommended one single point handle this. And so I suggested to the county commission that we transfer the employees over to the Board of County Commissioners, so there is one single point. Because right now, if a CAD system goes down, we got to call a certain entity in the county. If the phone systems go down, we call a different entity in the county. And so this would put it all under one umbrella in compliance with the Stoneman Douglas Commission. And there is legislation that working its way through the legislature to require that in there. So a little bit ahead of the curve. So that reduces my current budget by $2.8 million. That's just a wash. It's a transfer. Instead of the county giving me that money, they keep that money to run. And all existing employees will go over to the county if this is approved. So there's no change in service. Basically, everything's on a gold platter. All the employees are trained. The center is also an authorized training center for the county, by the state of Florida, and it's an accredited. So what I told the county commission and the county administrator is that as long as you let our director run it, and you'll have it fine. Frankly, if you screw with her, all bets are off. But I think it'll be a good package, and it will make it a little more consistent and in compliance. So that's why you see that reduction. 9 new deputies from you, which I already talked about. 3 new deputies from the BOCC, which is year 2 of that plan. And we believe there will be 1 additional school resource deputy paid by the school board, but that's still in fluctuation. In fact, I think tonight they're discussing it. So that may or may not occur. If it doesn't occur, then we will continue to bill the school board overtime rate when that's necessary. Increase in our operating expenses, you know, it's all the things that you have to deal with in the city, also with your employees. But well, you don't have to. You don't have to deal with the first one, inmate medical cost, okay, $600,000. Our radio user fees that we have to pay an increase, our operating supplies, ammunition, uniforms, fuel. Fuel was coming down, now it's starting to go back up, so we'll see how that plays out. I guess we need more drill, baby drill, pulling oil up. Our Axon contract, that's all our body cameras and car cameras, data storage, and the list goes on, as you can see. Same thing with operational in there. So the increase from the Board of County Commissioners is $2.29 million. It would be more than that if the communications center stayed with the sheriff's office. It would be more than double that. Contracted services includes yours, the school board, some private schools, any contract that we have, and so the budget increase total is about $5 million. And then I just want to talk to you about some of our future opportunities and challenges, because I think it's important that we discuss it. Palm Coast is the 18th fastest growing city in the United States. Palm Coast population is growing 22.98% since 2020. So think of that, since COVID, almost a 23% increase in population. The growth rate on average is 3.88% annually for the city of Palm Coast, but grew 4.5% between 23 and 24. None of these are my numbers. These are, I cited all of the, where the data is coming from. And Palm Coast is the fastest growing city between Volusia and Flagler County. Palm Coast's current population is 110,362. Jacksonville criminals are increasingly coming to Flagler County and Palm Coast to commit crimes. Now, we know that because we catch most of them, okay, which is a good thing, but unfortunately they have found us. Daytona and Palatka criminal element in connection to Bunnell and the city of Palm Coast. Quite often when we do drug raids, we find the sources seem to be connected. And many of the criminals that do violent crime in Volusia County, they're living in Flagler County, either Bunnell or Palm Coast. And, but we have great partnerships, and we help them arrest them and put them in jail. Technology has helped us reduce crime. Without the technology that we've implemented, we wouldn't have the crime reduction that we have. But you still need deputies to respond to this technology when we get an LPR hit. And if we don't have deputies to do that, then the technology becomes useless. Crime is trending down again in 2025, which is a good thing. But quality of life calls are increasing, and they don't get counted by the FBI NIBINs, like car crashes, disturbances, mental health calls, suspicious incidents. Had a suspicious incident just the other night that actually turned into a crime because we uncovered a crime. But many times, we want residents to call us when they see something, say something, because we would rather check it out and make sure it's not a crime than have to investigate the crime or catch a crime in progress. And we've had a couple of those recently where residents being a partner with us helped us solve crimes or stop the crime. And the other thing that doesn't get counted is many times you have to have multiple deputies respond to the same call. Suicide attempt, not counted. Well, you're not going to send just one deputy. If you send one deputy there, you're looking for a deputy-involved shooting. And we've had a great reputation of being able to de-escalate in there. So those are the things that don't get counted. And so to maintain our crime reduction and the service level, we really have to grow as the community grows and implement the plan that was agreed upon. Now, I'm almost done. Now, you have no role, if you will, in this as a city council, but I think it's important that you know what we're doing in the jail. The jail is required by law, 100% funded by the Board of County Commissioners. But I think it's important, even though I'm a law and order sheriff, but if we can help an inmate turn their life around so they don't come back to jail and they become productive citizens in the community, that's what I would prefer. And I think that's part of why our jail population is down, because we had a high population since I've been sheriff of 330 in the jail at night. Now we're down right around 200. And so I just would like to take a few minutes, because these are people that you don't see driving around. They're out on Justice Lane inside four walls 12 hours a day, but they really do a heck of a job helping these inmates turn their lives around. So we have a STRIDE program. We have an inmate work crew. We have a fatherhood program called Inside Out Dad, because we know that generational crime occurs because quite often the father figure is in jail and not engaged with their child. So we teach them the skills to be engaged with their children, even while they're in jail, and then to continue it, how to continue it when they are released. We have a Homeward Bound program because we know that county jail inmates, for the most part, are going to come back into the community. A small percentage are going to go to a state correctional facility, but most will come back. And so let's give them the skills so they can get gainful employment. So we have HVAC electrical apprenticeships in the program. We work with local agencies to assist inmates with job placement before they're released from jail. We have a great partnership with Flagler Technical College, workforce churches, and other organizations that make this happen. Some of the things in our Homeward Bound program, besides the mechanical stuff that I just talked about, we have certificate programs in the jail. For example, every patrol car you see driving around, all those decals on the side of the car were designed, well, they were designed by Commander Bender over here. But the running of the equipment, the applying them onto the cars is all done by inmates. And when they leave there, they have a graphic artist certificate from there. And all the equipment that was purchased to have this program was not paid by the taxpayers. It was paid by what's known as the Inmate Welfare Fund. And that is profits, if you will, that come from the commissary that's in the jail. If the inmates want snacks and stuff between our meal periods, they can buy that if they have money on their account. And by law, we have to put that back into inmate programs and welfare. So that's kind of the jail operation, if you will, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Obviously, you can follow us on all these different social media platforms, good or bad. And so any questions?
Thank you, Sheriff. One thing I'd like you to discuss, if you will, is how if someone goes to the county dashboard and they look at the cost for law enforcement in the county, and they see the amount, whatever it is, for their particular home or whatever. Can you maybe expound upon that, as because some people will say that there's double dipping because the county's paying and in the city. A lot of people don't understand that we are a contract city, and that's the main thing. And I think when you and I had our conversation when I was running, when I came to meet with you, I asked you how much your budget was, and I know a little bit more than most people because of my background and stuff. And I asked how much our contract was going to be, and we discussed how much it would be to stand up a complete law enforcement for our city.
Right.
But for those people that have any doubts about, the way you effectively manage your budget, can you explain a little how the county, what they pay towards county for law enforcement, and what they pay the city, and what the city pays you for law enforcement?
Right. So that's a great question. But with that, if you'll indulge me, I'll give a little history to what I'm going to say. So in the late 1970s, the city of Palm Beach sued Palm Beach County just for that reason, saying we have our own police department, this is dual taxation, and we shouldn't have to pay the same countywide ad valorem tax. That case took about 13, 14 years to go through the system. It went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. The Florida Supreme Court in the 1980s said that it is not dual taxation because a sheriff's deputy has jurisdiction anywhere in the county. So they can make arrests in the city, they can respond, they can take over a call for a city police department legally, and every time a car goes through, it's crime prevention and so forth. So that dual taxation issue has been resolved by the Florida Supreme Court. Whether you like it or not, it is resolved. It's not dual taxation. So what every other county does, except for Flagler, is that if a city, and you see a lot of this in Miami-Dade County, you see a lot of this in Broward County, some in Palm Beach County. That's where the majority of this is at. You see some of it actually in Orange County. If a city does not have a police department, they contract at full 100% cost to the sheriff, okay? Like Marion County just took over a police department when the city said, you know, our police department, we can't afford it anymore, give us a price, and they went to the sheriff. This just happened a few weeks ago. And so, for example, City of Deltona, you are bigger than the City of Deltona by population. They pay the full freight in a contract to the sheriff, okay? Now, that's usually the way it happens and occurs, but not in this county. And I've never seen this in any other county. And on a public record, I'm going to tell you how long I've been doing this job, but I've been doing this job a long time. And so what has happened here in this county is the Board of County Commissioners has said that we will provide a basic level of law enforcement service, which a basic level of law enforcement service in the unincorporated areas is not as intense as you have. That's the bottom line, okay? And then, many years ago, long before I was sheriff, the city of Palm Coast decided that they wanted a higher level of service. So they chose to contract with the sheriff for an enhanced level. So you have the basic level, then you have the enhanced level, which, if I were to go back to that slide, is that $110 that you pay at the 444, okay, or 48. So if you were to take the $100 off the 448, then the county's paying $348 per capita for law enforcement, detention, and bailiff, okay? So in my budget, here's what that would mean if you did not do an enhanced level. My total budget is right at, Shana, help me out, about 50 million, right? Yeah, so 56 million. If you were to deduct the 11 million that you're paying next fiscal year, then that's what the county's putting in. So the 56 minus 11, they're putting in 45 million, okay? Now, if you were to start your own police department, okay, you would need to find revenue probably of new revenue of probably about 30 million a year, just for operations. Then you still need equipment, cars, which are running fully equipped. They're running now about 85,000, I think, with every car, with all the equipment that goes in them. And the cars aren't, we used to get super great deals. We still get better deals than the private market, but they're not like they used to be when I could buy a Crown Vic for $13,000 back in the day for a police package. Then you need a building, you need all this. And remember, you know, I hear a lot of time, well, if we start our own police department, the county will lower their ad valorem. They're not required to. That was decided in the 1980s by the Florida Supreme Court. So they're not required to reduce their ad valorem, and the county has lots of needs. So they would love probably the extra 25 or $30 million back into their budget. So you're looking at a significant investment of plus reoccurring revenue that's only going to increase. Plus, you don't get sued for law enforcement. I do, okay? So your liabilities, your attorney is gonna have to defend more. We don't get sued very often, but it's usually motor vehicle crashes, and sometimes we own that. We just did the other day when a deputy ran in the back of a Tesla. That's gonna be an expensive payment. But, you know, those things happen because we're driving millions of miles a year, and we do have distracted driving because we're exempt. We have computers in the car. They have to look at them and stuff like that. So, you know, crashes unfortunately do occur. Fortunately, not very often, but it does. So those are all the things that I think answers your question, Mayor. But
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I would agree with you that we are paying for the sins of the past. as far as is it 37 new deputies over 3 years, and then the support personnel that goes along with it. And I would like the general public to understand that impact fees don't pay for salaries. That's our biggest thing, is salaries and benefits. But I really appreciate your service to our city. I'll open it up to other members of the council if they have any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just wanted to thank you and all your staff for everything you guys do. You guys do a phenomenal job for the city of Palm Coast, so thank you.
They do.
I have a couple questions. One for the e-bikes. I kind of went down the rabbit hole of this whole thing last week, and I saw that a lot of what's happening, at least for the younger drivers of e-bikes, is that they're, you mentioned limiters and things like that on these e-bikes. There's now kind of a culture of modifying e-bikes to make them faster and less safe. So how do we combat that? Because obviously, I know the definition of the motorbike versus the bike. These would obviously probably fall under the motorbike, but how do you know that driving down the road?
Well, it's kind of the same problem with fireworks, right? It's legal to sell fireworks, but it's not legal to blow them off, except for certain days of the year now, because Florida changed the law. So the same thing with the e-bike, and I missed that point. So thank you for bringing that up, doing the research. So an e-bike is legal when it's sold. It has the pedals, it has a limiter, and once it's sold, people modify them, just like they modify cars. And so the ordinance would set a maximum speed they can go, and we all have radars in our deputies. So, I mean, that's part of how you control that. And then if they are over that, the limiter, depending on how the ordinance is written, we could seize the bike. That would be my recommendation, because that's the only way you can write them a ticket, and they're not going to slow down.
They'll be right back out there. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. On your slide on traffic, I thought it was interesting that there's an increase in crashes, things like that, but our fatalities are going down. What do we attribute that to?
Well, I think it's a number of things. Most of the crashes that we're seeing are traffic congestion related, people not paying attention. I rolled up on one that had just happened on Palm Coast Parkway the other day, coming back from a meeting. It rear-ended and stopped traffic. Very minor, but that's part of it. That's why engineering in roads are issue. Prime example, State Road 100 is almost done being repaved. That's great. It's a 2-lane road with a few new turn lanes. It needed to be a 6-lane road, or 3 on each side, with turn lanes. So it was a stopgap, adding a few turn lanes, but that's not going to solve the problem. Same thing on our other main arteries, Palm Coast Parkway, stuff like that. So it does require engineering to do that, and enforcement and education. That's really all you can do. And so I encourage my deputies to work traffic for a number of reasons. One is that's our high quality of life complaint. Number 2 is we know that criminals go from point A to B in most cases in a car. And they commit traffic violations. So if we get into the car if we can stop the car for a traffic violation, we can see what's going on inside that car. Are they a fugitive? Did they just do a burglary? The list goes on and on. And so I encourage them to do that. But to do that, it depends on the volume of calls too, because the calls take the priority. So it's a combination of all of that is how we can do it. But as we become more congested, and I've lived here for 20 years now, and I remember when I first moved up here, I would hear people that moved from like New York City or New Jersey and all that complain that they had to wait one traffic light to get across Palm Coast Parkway and Interstate 95. And I laughed, my wife and I would laugh, because we came from Orlando. And not to compare Orlando with New York City traffic, there's a lot of congestion in Orlando. And we would laugh, saying, well, they forgot where they came from. Well, we're there now. We all see it. And the roads don't keep up with the growth, is the bottom line. And it's got to be good coordination with the state. State Road 100 is a clear example of, in my opinion, not good coordination, because the state, for their projects, are 10 years out.
Yeah.
And so they probably planned the repaving and adding some turn lanes 10 years ago. And so the state's always behind.
Thank you. I saw you also mentioned technology and the impact that it has as a force multiplier. I've seen recently a lot of, through the county notification system, a lot of usage of drone technology. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, we do have drones, and we have a number of drones that we launch when necessary. We're not flying around just to fly them around. But we are exploring the use of drone as a first responder. And that would operate out of our real-time crime center. Now, we're a ways from that, but we are exploring it, because it's, even though we've gotten the price down quite a bit because we've arm twisted our preferred vendor, they're still expensive. And you have to get some FAA approvals to be able to fly a drone not within your line of sight. And so we are on the cutting edge of all the technology, and drone is one of those. And I would put up our real-time crime center and our technology against any agency in this country. I recently, well, probably a year ago now, I spoke at the National Real-Time Crime Center Association. I was out in Phoenix. I was on a panel with another sheriff and 2 other police chiefs. And as part of that, they said, since you're here on this day and you're not talking till the next day, and they paid for the entire trip, by the way, if you're wondering if you paid for it. But they said, we're going to take you out and show you Scottsdale Police Department, Salt River Police Department, which is the Indian Reservation, and the Phoenix Police Department. So I really wanted to see Phoenix. And 'cause I'm thinking big metropolitan community, I want to see what they're doing. What a joke. I couldn't believe it. It was a total waste of my time. We are so light years ahead of the Phoenix Police Department. Salt River had just moved into a new building, so theirs, unfortunately, wasn't fully functional. But I believe, talking to them, they're probably equivalent to ours. And Scottsdale was probably equivalent to ours. But here was this big city, and what a joke. And I can't tell you how many agencies have come from around the country to look at our technology and our real-time crime center. And I've got an amazing team that works in there. Obviously, technology is not any good if you don't have good people. And it's just a great combination. And my belief is the crime is down because of our technology and our motivated people. But a big part of that is now we're getting close to where the staffing is more appropriate. When you look at the numbers, when I came in as sheriff, we were underfunded, understaffed agency significantly. Now we are no longer a reactive agency, we are a proactive agency. And I think that's the combination, but it's not just one by itself.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a reputation amongst people who commit crime to not come here. And we see it anecdotally. I think, people say, oh, I see all these communication about crime. A lot of it's like the plate readers catching people coming across the county line or going through intersections within Palm Coast, and which allows us to catch these bad guys, basically. So that's all I have. I appreciate your time, Sheriff.
If I could just add to that real quick, we arrested 2 fugitives last night from out of county, and it was based on technology in there. So I mean, that's what it does.
Even going back, and we've had this discussion, Sheriff, even going back to 2015, 2016, you were elected in 16. When I worked for DOT, those license plate readers can take a picture of a DOT number on the side of a truck and the license plate at 80 miles an hour. That was back then. I can't even imagine what they're doing now.
Yeah, technology, is just amazing. I wish I had that technology when I was a young deputy, but we didn't. But Councilman Miller, I just want to point out about your criminal comment. So one of the people that we arrested on our Summer Slammer Roundup, we bought cocaine from him. And when we were making the deal, he said, yeah, I'll sell you the ounce of cocaine, but I won't do it in Flagler County. So we went to Volusia and got Volusia involved. We still bought the cocaine. And we've had cases where these dirtbags out of Jacksonville one time came out of Jacksonville in a stolen car. They hit St. Johns County, they hit us, they went to Volusia County, they abandoned their stolen car there, stole a car from Volusia County, and went back to Jacksonville, which is very typical of what these roving bands of criminals do. But with our technology, we tracked them down. And within 3 or 4 days, we had them all arrested and recovered most of the stolen property from our auto burglaries that had occurred to us. 3 or 4 weeks later, another group of Jacksonville came out. They hit St. Johns County, they skipped Flagler County, and they went to Volusia. That's the reputation I want.
What do we want, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here, and thank you to your team, Commander Bender, Chief Walker, Commander Goncalves. Shanna, we haven't met, but nice to see you here, and Chief Rodriguez. And thank you to our commander in the back, Bernie Woodward, for being here as well. You all do an awesome job, obviously, and I think the whole community greatly appreciates what your office does. To kind of piggyback first off of what you were just talking about, is there anything interagency-wide that we can do to almost ask the kind of surrounding counties to step up their game? Because it's great that whoever's committing these crimes get caught when they get here, but we obviously don't want them here. Is there anything that we can do to work with those agencies to help the Tri-County area?
So we have a great partnership with our surrounding agencies. We all work well together. We're all tied in together through the Northeast Florida, but basically Crime Information Center. And so we are doing that. The best thing that we could do is build a wall at south end of Jacksonville, build a wall around Palatka, and build a wall in Daytona, quite frankly. But they're all working well. We do work well together. We compare notes. In fact, because of that relationship, we were able to solve cases because an agency in Volusia County had some information, we had some information, and we tied it together and were able to make the arrest for a very difficult burglary case that was preying on our Asian community. So that is occurring. I'd say that Jacksonville's probably overrun.
Yeah.
I think you used to practice up in that area,
Yeah, I
right?
do practice law up there.
There's a great sheriff up there, TK Waters, work very well together. But here's a key point. When you lose it, and TK didn't lose control of Jacksonville, but when you lose it, it's very hard to get it back. And he's trying very hard. And that's why it's so important that we never lose the crime reductions that we've had, because you'll never get it back.
Yeah. Well, some low-hanging fruit for me. I definitely support the e-bike ordinance, whatever you and your general counsel and our council decide is the best avenue and route to take. You have my support 100%. And as far as creating a city police department, my thoughts are, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And your department is certainly not broke. You all do a wonderful job. I would encourage, and I think the social media that you all do is fantastic as well. I appreciate the transparency because I actually think it reminds our residents to do the 9 p.m. routine, lock your cars, remember that we're not 100% safe in this community. We still have to be mindful of our surroundings and, still do things to make sure we're not victimized. So I appreciate your transparency and everything that you all do on social media. I guess my biggest concern as far as, you know, how your office dedicates resources in our community is exactly what you touched on for quality of life, and that is traffic enforcement. Because, yeah, I went back and looked at some of the other presentations and data that you had given us. And when I look at 2023 numbers, you had a little over 120,000 calls for service and about 23,400 traffic stops. This year, we're on track for 125,000 calls for service, so definitely more. I'm sorry, that's not correct. 25,000 traffic stops, so more traffic stops, but less calls for service. So we're right now, year to date, we're on track for 118, which is less than 2023. So I just want to see. I think the community, the complaint that I hear the most is certainly not safety. My residents feel safe. It's the traffic enforcement. And I appreciate you all recognizing that as well and adding traffic units and really kicking up that enforcement. I did see on the data in these slides that there's been more accidents but less traffic stops and warnings, and that's just from the data that was provided in the slide. So it's hard for me to reconcile that. Why are we having more accidents but it seems there's less traffic stops and less warnings? And I think you somewhat touched on it. And I know that the philosophy of your office is we don't want to fine people, we want to educate. If we can stop them and educate them, that's more what we want to do. But I'm almost wondering if we need to start fining people more to get them to comply with our traffic, our traffic ordinances and our traffic laws a little bit more, because I know from my residents that is the number one complaint that I hear is traffic, traffic, traffic.
So I'm going to answer your question, but first I'm going to look at Chief John Welker. You just heard the vice mayor. You made a note, right? Yes, sir. Okay. He runs all those people that are pulling the cars over, okay? But with that said, I'm not going to take discretion away from a deputy sheriff. And it's illegal in Florida to have quotas. Right. And so we're not going to do that. And let me kind of tell you my philosophy is on whether it's a ticket or a warning. So most people that I pull over, in fact, the guy that I just pulled over had a really good attitude, got impatient, committed a traffic violation. I pulled him over and we had a pretty significant discussion. But I didn't write him a ticket. So, you know, I can tell you how you get a ticket from the sheriff, okay, is if you're going to give me a ration of you know what, when I pull you over for a traffic violation, you're going to pay for it, and I'm going to write you a ticket. Well, you talk yourself into the ticket when I had every intention to just give you a warning, okay? Now, I can't tell you that's how my deputies operate. I can tell you that's how I operate in my discretion. And there are certain things that I have pet peeves with: DUI, driver's license issues, tag issues. I got to buy a tag. You need to buy a tag. So those are in my scope are automatic citations. But here's what I try to tell our deputies, and I take this from my own personal experience as a young deputy sheriff in Orange County. Right before Christmas, probably 2 weeks before Christmas, I pulled over this lady, young woman, on her way to work at Disney. Back in those days, there wasn't much money for speeding. I wrote her a ticket. I could tell that she probably had a child because there was a car seat in the back and toys and stuff like that. Child wasn't there. I wrote her a ticket, got back in my car, then I felt bad. I pulled her over again. And she got very, very flustered. What did I do now? I said, give me your copy of the ticket back. Because to void a ticket, I have to write a memo and I have to have all the copies. And so I took the ticket back and I voided it. And so I use that example to my deputies. And what I say is, can you get the compliance with a warning? Look beyond the impact of that ticket. Those tickets back then were probably only $35, okay? They're over $100 today, okay? Pushing on 200. And knowing that she was probably, I don't know for sure if she was a single mom, but just the way she acted and stuff, I suspect so. Knowing that there was a younger child, I probably, had I let that ticket, where she had to pay it, I just hurt that entire family. Because they were making maybe $4 an hour back then at Disney, okay? And so I asked them, you know, see the gray in it, just not the black and the white. And it takes a while for law enforcement officers to understand that. It took me a while, you know, the blue light fever, right? So I want them to use the traffic to educate and inform and get into that car, and because it's a quality of life issue. But I want them to look, can I get compliance with a warning? But then they have the discretion, because I'm not gonna say you have to write a ticket because it's against the law in there. So, and I'll give you another example. I stopped a lady, again, Orange County deputy, Forsyth Road. I stopped a lady for speeding. I gave her a warning. The very next day, the very same time, I'm running the radar the same place, I caught her again. She got a ticket this time. Okay, so that's the discretion I want my deputies to have. But we do recognize the quality of life complaint.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I, you know, I think that your words definitely show that you're a compassionate sheriff, and, you know, I think that the proactive policing is important, right? We know police presence cuts down on crime, cuts down on traffic violations, things like that. My concern is when it's happening in neighborhoods, because then on the one hand, you have to balance how can we educate and not hurt that family by ticketing a single mom, but at the same time, if somebody's going 45 or 50 on our neighborhood streets, they're putting lives at danger. And so, you know, that's kind of the concern that I'm hearing from a lot of our residents.
So if I could just add a little bit on that, 'cause you may not be aware that we have this capability. So when we get a traffic complaint in a residential neighborhood, we put up, it's pretty much a camera, but it tracks the speed and the time, because we want to use our resources efficiently. And so what we find in many cases is that perception does not match what we're really finding.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that Florida law says that we cannot, so if your speed limit is 30, and I know you're discussing other speed limits for your residential roads. If the speed limit is 30, Florida law says I can't stop you until you're at least 5 over the speed limit. So in effect, when they passed that law probably a decade ago, they raised the speed limit on every road in Florida by 5 miles. And I mean, that's part of the problem too. And so really the speed limit is 35 and not 30, even though the Florida law says, unless posted otherwise, all residential roads are 30 miles an hour. Well, they're really not when you look at the other law. I guess you could say they're 34, you know, since we can't stop till 35. But we do have this equipment. We do put it out there because when there is a complaint, we want to know when to put our traffic unit on those roads, and so that they are efficiently used. But in many of the cases, and there's always an exception, but in many of the cases, perception is that they're flying, and the data doesn't show it.
Sure. Yeah, and I can't tell how fast somebody's going just by looking at it, so I can understand that. As far as budget and needs go, you have my support as far as what you're asking for. I know we've been working from behind. To your point, to the mayor's point, we are paying for some past sins. This council seems to be laying out a lot of those swords in a lot of different ways. But I commend us for stepping up and for staff making the budget, helping us with the budget to make this happen, because it is general fund money. I know in the report that you all had done, I think from 2022 is what it was based on, and then I think we got the report in 2023 at a UF. Is that who did it? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was 2 doctors out of University of North Florida.
North
so
Florida.
There was one done in, I think it was 2018, and then a follow-up in 2020, if I recall correctly.
Okay. I know it seemed to base, or when you presented at the joint county city workshop, we talked about time obligated for the officers and kind of what that goal was. I would like to, for next year, when we're considering deputies again, additional deputies, because I did look ahead to see what the sheriff's office would likely be requesting in the future as well. I would like to see where we are. In other words, what are the KPIs almost since we have increased the deputies, and we likely will again this year in our budget. What percentage obligated are the deputies now versus then? And is it helping? Is it getting better? Because obviously we want to see the deputies on the road more and filling out less paperwork or at calls less. That's the goal, is to help with that proactive policing. So if we could get those figures just for next year, just so that we could see, is what we're doing working? And do we even need to go? Because I think next year asking for 13 total, I thought I saw it increased. So when we're looking at budget, which I think it's going to get a little bit tighter next year, just maybe kind of reevaluating that and seeing if we still need to go that route in order to cut down on that percent obligated.
Yeah, we'll be glad to do that. Hopefully you'll give me my chief of staff back so I can assign that to him, but by then. But yes, we will look at that. But let me just clarify that what you're doing right now, last year, this future year, and the following year, is deputies that we should have had before 2018.
I understand that.
And so no growth deputies have been included. But I think it's important that we do look at that because, as you said, despite that growth, the documented calls for service are going down. So we need to look at what is the formula after we fill all the deficit deputies going forward.
Absolutely, because I mean, you have my commitment to continue to support the sheriff's office financially to make sure that we're still keeping the same quality of life for our residents. I just want to make sure that we're also working with updated data based on the increase in deputies. So I appreciate your willingness to do that for us.
My staff will tell you I'm an ROI sheriff, so
Yes.
I get it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Silva?
Sheriff, good to see you again. You know, I'm new here. I've been working with the police department and with the sheriff's department for a long time now, in the county too. So I agree with everything that's been said. I'm not going to go through all that again, but a couple of questions. And we have covered this a little bit, but the idea of reducing speed limits on the road, say in Palm Coast, like the city of Flagler Beach has done recently. I'll have two questions, so maybe wait to answer them. But so the idea would be reduce speeds on all the roads like 30 to 20, which means really 35 to 25 based on what you're saying. Does that make a lot of sense? It would cost a lot of money for us to do that in the way of, I know that's corny, but with the way of signs and things, it would not be it would take a while to get that done. So I thought you have on that. And then on the 3-year plan, of course, the joint plan that was worked with the county and the city, I would just add to what the vice mayor said, if we do it again, it's a 3-year plan, so we're in the second year. We have 1 more year to go on that plan, but we may want to think about what do we do from then on? Do we do another joint operation and study to update the information, see how we're doing? Or do we just kind of do it as part of the regular system now? Or do we need to do another iteration of that 3-year plan? The other thing, I hope the 9/11 call system, all that works out. It sounds very good that it's going to work, but I'd also like to hear a little report maybe a year from now on how that's working out. I worry about change is good sometimes, not always good. So I hope there's no perturbations in how well that 9/11 call system works as it does now. So those are the 3 things and I agree with what the rest of the
So let me answer your last comment first, and I'll come back to your other question. So as far as the 911 center, on the draft interlocal agreement or MOU to transition the employees, that's all it's transitioning to, is that there is an escape clause. So if we start seeing failures, I can execute that escape clause and they come back to me, okay? I don't think that's gonna happen because they're well-trained. The only difference is whose name is on the check. It's still FRS. I mean, that's really the only difference because they're trained. So I don't think we're gonna have that issue. My communications director has told me, and she'll be at the director level at the county and only reporting to, the deputy county administrator, Jorge. So it's not like she's reporting to, you know, another director, okay? So I don't think there's gonna be any issues, but we have safeguarded that if we start to see that, okay? As far as the speed limit, well, so I'm not sure, I'm not sure, well, Flagler Beach is probably doing a very good job enforcing their 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, okay? And that's what it takes, quite frankly. I have properties in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and in that city, the speed limit, with a few exceptions, is 20 miles an hour, period, okay? And they enforce it. So when I'm up there, I know I put my cruise control at 20 miles an hour, okay? Maybe just a little bit more than that, but not much. So without the enforcement, the people that are going to speed are going to speed. Now they just get a bigger ticket, okay? Because the speed's higher and more points on their license. And I think those that want to speed, they could care less. They don't think about how much it's going to cost them. They don't think about the points on their license, okay? So I don't know if it will have the effect that you're really hoping for. It might. Maybe, you know, a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, you're a big city, 110,000 population, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit really gives them to 30 instead of 30 to 35. So I would say, you know, we'll enforce whatever you want, but when you lower it, the expectation is 20 miles an hour, and you're not going to get that. That's the bottom line. You know, we can pull people over for slower speeds at that point, but I don't think it's going to solve the problem. Just like calming, traffic calming devices. I think you've heard a lot about that, right? That usually doesn't have a whole lot of support. Well, I shouldn't say support. A lot of long-term effect, and it aggravates more drivers than you probably actually get the effect that you're looking for. Be my guess. I don't know the answer to that. But if you lower the speed limit, we will do our best to enforce it. Just be wary. It's not going to be the solution that I think you're looking for.
I think the problem is when the traffic calming devices are hit and miss. You have a lot, you know, big city now, whereas a speed limit change affects everything. So it might be a little less contentious with where, you know, depending on what you're doing. But anyway, I think it's an issue that is to be discussed, just like the electric bikes. We got to look at things and see what's.
And we'll be glad to have that discussion. In fact, I would encourage you to have, you know, input from, you know, our team, our traffic unit, Chief Welker, Commander Bernie Woodward, Kenny Congalvis. Those are your real team players on traffic.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Sheriff, the last question for me, and I know we discussed this some time ago. You're being competitive and you're being able to retain your people. Do you have what's your turnover rate right now?
So my turnover rate, I think, is right under 7%, which is really good for law enforcement. Most of that, they change jobs and leave law enforcement or retire, and also included in that employees that don't make their probationary period, so it's a combination. But I'm actually 12 over hire right now, and my law enforcement side, and it's either 2 or 3 over hire in detention. I'm not having the problems that the other agencies around the country are having, or even nearby. And it's because this is a great community to serve. They support public safety. That's because I pay a competitive wage and benefits. I'm not the highest. And our equipment is new, our facility is new. I mean, we have everything you want to attract employees. And so we're able to do that. So in effect, the employees that hopefully you will approve in the budget, they're already on board and trained. So when you say that they start October 1. They truly start October 1. Okay, there's not a training period for those. Now, we'll hire new ones to train and get up. And so we're not having that. I will tell you that based on a survey that I had my HR do, I'm starting to fall behind on starting pay competitiveness, especially if St. Johns County gets the wage increases that he's hoping for. So next year, I'm probably, when I say next year, it'll be the fiscal year 26, 27, I'm going to have to look at some wage adjustments from the base. But that affects everybody going up too. So, but right now we are competitive and it's not affecting any hiring process.
And your retention rate, you're not spending money to train someone to go somewhere else.
No,
Thank you, sir.
it's very, very rare. I mean, I did lose a deputy the other day to FHP, and I remember when FHP was at the bottom of the barrel, you know, for pay. And now what happens is the governor in the last 2 years has skyrocketed their pay, but more importantly, what's hurting us is because they, you know, cops talk to cops, right? They can get an off-duty job through DOT, sitting on some construction zone with their blue lights on and doing absolutely nothing, and add $30,000 or $40,000 a year to their pay through overtime that way. And that's
State money well spent.
I'm sorry?
State money well spent.
Yeah, exactly, right. But when I lose somebody to another agency, it's something like that, which is very rare.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? We're going to open this up to public comment. If you want to stick around for a minute, Sheriff, somebody
Sure.
may have a comment for you.
Mayor, really quickly, just if you could also, Sheriff, extend gratitude to Chief Inger. You all do a great job with inmate services. He does a great job with the detention, the Green Roof Inn. So please extend our gratitude to him as well.
Yeah, he does a great job. We've won a lot of awards. I didn't even mention those from the jail, so thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We'll open this up for public comment, so if anyone has any public comment, please come forward. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Chantel.
Hi, Chantal Pralinger. All right. First of all, I want to thank the sheriff and all his team. And I would say I'd rather have one of them knock on my door than the police, because they bring something more than enforcing the law. They have with them some compassion and human factor. So I appreciate you all. Because they brought it was brought into the dialogue, the speed limit around here is 15 miles per hour around the theater and all that. Have you ever seen any people driving around that look frustrated because it's so slow?
Just for us, Ms. Chantel, you give us and he can
Yeah.
respond after.
Okay. But, I mean, that was something he brought, that people might be frustrated. Also, I'm glad they brought also the 5 miles an hour above the limit, because that's what I've seen in the neighborhoods as well. It's 35. It's a little fast, but I brought that before. And I want to ask a question about the e-bike and the e-scooters. Where do we use them? Can we use them on the sidewalk for our own safety, or are we supposed to use them on the street? What's the law?
Just your comment, and then we'll follow up, Ms. Chantel.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Jeannie.
Jeannie Duarte. I want to thank our Flagler County Sheriff's Department for all the work that they do. I'm a COP, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. And I want to thank you, too, for bringing up the compassion that the department has, that it's not about just get them and get the money. So I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir?
Hi, good morning. My name is Jay Wagner. I've been living here for 15 years. I'm 81 years old, and I'm here to comment briefly on the e-bike situation because it's one thing I am very passionate about. Before I begin that, Sheriff, thank you for your work in apprehension of that individual or those two individuals. There's no room for that in our community. I sincerely appreciate it. But I'd like to point out that in watching the presentation, that was in no way, shape, or form a legal e-bike in the state of Florida. And I came here with a lot of presentation and Florida e-bike laws and all of these things. And basically what I want to say is it's important not to create a misperception that all e-bikes are inherently dangerous. We have 3 categories that are legal e-bikes in this state. Category 1 are e-bikes that must be pedaled and their speed limit is limited to 20 miles per hour. Category 2 are those bicycles which only receive motor power by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, but also have a throttle that is limited to 20 miles per hour. And category 3 are e-bikes that have no throttle, but have a motor that can be pedaled up to a top speed of 28 miles per hour. So as far as e-bikes are concerned, that is, and I'm sure the sheriff knows this, is the legal speed limit for e-bikes. And anything beyond that is just illegal. But my danger is, my concern is that you create a perception in the community which then leads to all e-bikes are dangerous. So the law has to be very carefully crafted, what the sheriff is considering. I'm 81 years old. There are many people close by in my category that use e-bikes for recreation. We use them for shopping. We use them for light errands. They've made a tremendous difference in the life of a lot of people. There are people in this community who cannot afford a second car. They cannot even afford a first car. And you pull up to Publix and you'll see e-bikes parked at the bike racks and people coming out and doing their shopping. So it's very important in considering this. And the last thing I have to say is, in my view, the only way that we can really assess the safety of e-bikes, and I've ridden over 15,000 miles in the 8 years that I've had my e-bike, is to know how many thousands of miles of e-bike mileage are put on in this city and how many actual incidents we have. Everything else to deal with complaints, we all know people who will complain at the drop of a hat. So I'm asking for the council's just consideration. Be very careful with how you draft these laws. Let's preserve e-bikes for the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Mr. Webb.
Mark Webb, Palm Coast. First, I'd like to say I am married to the daughter of an LA County Sheriff retired lieutenant. So I am schooled constantly on the support of which they have of everything that they do. But I think the challenge, and I believe the Vice Mayor pointed to it, is there's this perception, and we've heard it today, enhanced service. So I was having this conversation at a meeting the other night in preparation for this, and I was trying to describe to someone the difference between a Walmart and a Publix. And they looked at me like, well, they all serve food and products and whatever. I said, but when you walk into a Publix, you experienced enhanced service. You also pay for that. It's like you're in Walmart and you're rushing around and you see just people barely surviving. You walk into Publix, the music's playing, everything's spotless and clean. That's enhanced service. And I think where the sheriff department is failing, and it's not their fault, is informing the public, especially Palm Coast, of what that is. What is that enhanced service? Because when you're at your worst time in your life, there's been an injury, you've been robbed, the sheriffs are there, they are as appreciative, it's phenomenal. The service they provide is phenomenal. I don't question it. But the perception is something which Sheriff Staley mentioned several times. The other thing I wanted to really touch on is the speed limit, because now publicly the entire city knows the speed limit is really 5 miles higher than posted. But I don't believe the law says you couldn't pull them over for a warning or get their attention. I think it talks about ticketing, but I'm not sure. As the vice mayor knows, I'm a huge proponent in lowering the speed limits in our subdivisions that have no sidewalk, no lights, because the survivability of a pedestrian being hit at 20 and at 30 is incredibly different and shocking. And so now the public is understanding that at 30 miles an hour on my street, 35 is the chosen. So we have some challenges for money. We need to rethink that. But thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Anyone else for public comment? Any follow-up, Sheriff, you want to address any of those topics?
Sure, I'll do the last one first because it's fresh in my memory. Florida law forbids a law enforcement officer anywhere in the state of Florida to stop anyone unless they're going 5 miles above the speed limit. Can't do a warning, can't do anything. It's illegal to stop them. That's the bottom line. What enhanced level service looks like, without your support, it would be a reduction of 67 deputy sheriffs. That's what you're paying for. Now, it's broken down in your budget slide that I gave you, but that includes the town center deputy that technically you're not paying for. The town center CDD is paying for, but they fund it through you. 1 school resource deputies, it would reduce the non-additional deputies we talked about this year, 50 deputy sheriffs, 2 deputy sheriff corporals, 3 deputy sheriff sergeants, and 1 commander. That's what your enhanced service is paying for. That would gut the service to the city of Palm Coast. That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As far as e-bikes, first, I hope, sir, when I'm 81, that I look as good as you. Okay. Number one. Number 2 is, I hope when I'm 81 I can get on top of an e-bike. I'm not trying to kill e-bikes because they do serve a purpose, and the gentleman clearly spoke the need for it, and I agree with that. It's the e-bikes that are driven recklessly without disregard to the bicycle laws is really what I'm looking for, a tool in the toolbox for my deputies, not to be the killer of e-bikes, because we use them in, well, I've got one, but in the sheriff's office, so they do serve a purpose. And I don't think I could explain it as well as the gentleman did for the need for him, for the reasons that he stated. Let me see, I'm trying to think of the other.
Bicycle, e-bikes or bicycles, where they can be ridden?
Yes. So currently under Florida law, you can ride an e-bike anywhere you can ride a bicycle, which means a sidewalk. It means the bike pass, it means the walking pass. That's where you can ride a bicycle. What the draft, and again, the ordinance is not for prime time. It's a very rudimentary draft by my general counsel, who, by the way, has never written a draft ordinance before until this time. And so I explained that to your attorney. Is that it would not allow e-bikes on sidewalks. Basically, other than that, you have to follow everything else. So if there's a bike path, you can ride it. If it's a bicycle lane on the road, you can ride it. But it still requires that on a cross intersection where cars are, like you saw in the video, you have to get off and walk it across in there. But again, I'm sure there will be lots of comment as we go through the public process, and once we get something that everybody thinks is ready for prime time, it's not. So did that cover all the main questions, I think?
I think there was a question by Ms. Chantel about, I didn't get the full question, but it was something about the speed limit and frustrated drivers.
speed limit in what?
It's too slow.
Oh, the 15
and there was
mile
a
an hour.
question if we've seen at the lower speed, I think, if people were passing the 15 miles an hour. I have not personally seen people pass, but let me ask Chief Walker, you have? Yeah. Yeah. So we haven't seen that, but the one thing with Town Center, the speed calming devices on that road will send you airborne if you go much faster than 15. And they're very, I don't like them personally, but they're too high. But anyway, so we have not seen that.
Yes, sir. Okay, Sheriff, we really appreciate your time, and you guys, like everyone said, you do a phenomenal job. You're probably one of the most popular sheriffs in the country with the Green Roof Inn, and if you can keep, what is it, on patrol out of here, we appreciate it. We don't need airing our dirty laundry on national TV every weekend, so. It is entertaining, though, and we know you have a lot of videos out there.
Fortunately, they stay mostly in Volusia County because they have something to air. They don't have much to air here. It's like booked first day in our jail. They're not here that much because they can be here for hours and not get anything interesting.
Yes, sir.
In there. But thank you. I know I've taken a lot of your time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for showing up with the sheriff. Okay, well, we're going to move on to presentation 2, Flagler County Vulnerability Assessment and Compound Flooding. Friday night in Richland County, South Carolina. Danny Brown.
You know,
Morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Carmelo Morales, City of Palm Coast Stormwater Engineering, and I'm here to present Mr. Andrew
Prokopiak.
Sorry about that, Andrew. He's representing the Northeast Florida Regional Council. They have recently been working on a vulnerability assessment countywide, as well as a compound flooding study. So he's going to be giving us an overview. I believe they're still working. They're close to final, still being worked on. And we are stop number 1 of a series of municipalities that they're going to be presenting to. So with that, Mr. Andrew, please take it away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me here today.
Yes, sir.
Again, my name is Andrew Prokopiak, and I'm the Senior Resiliency Planner with the Northeast Florida Regional Council. I apologize, my colleague Farah Alami is not here today to assist me in this presentation, but like Carmelo said, Flagler County is working on a vulnerability assessment and a compound flooding analysis. So what is a vulnerability assessment? Pretty much a vulnerability assessment is just a study undertaken to determine the impacts of flooding, which I know Palm Coast is definitely familiar with. This affects both the natural built environment, parks, green space, and structures, the infrastructure, your downtown areas, your beaches, everything. So this is to get hard, concrete data on exactly how affected a lot of these things are going to be. So there's 2 main reasons why. There's the practical reasons. Well, you want to know how deep floodwaters are going to come at a particular type of storm so that you can properly plan. It allows you to prioritize resiliency projects, so you're not just throwing darts at a dartboard going, hey, that lift station looks like it needs to be raised, or we should add a flood barrier here. No, this is based on concrete, sound data. The other reason to do it is because it's a requirement. The state mandated that a statewide vulnerability assessment be conducted at the county level. So the good thing is that Palm Coast and all of the other municipalities within Flagler County do not have to do their own vulnerability assessment to become compliant. Flagler County incorporates all of the municipal data into their assessment. That doesn't mean Palm Coast couldn't go out and do their own vulnerability assessment, looking at either expanded flood hazards or looking at specific other assets that may not have been captured in the original data set. So I'm not going to read this. This is an exhaustive list. This is what the state of Florida determined a critical asset to be, and it covers everything from military installations to airports, parks, affordable housing, transportation, evacuation routes, bridges, rail lines. It encompasses as much as they could possibly encompass. So we have at the state level, there is now a comprehensive list of critical assets and their flood depths in each county that has completed a vulnerability assessment. So vulnerability assessments cover flooding. Well, there's a lot of different kinds of flooding. There's rainfall-induced flooding, which I'm sure some of you have heard, 100 and 500-year storms. And I want to make it a point, that does not mean you cannot have another 100 or 500-year storm in the same year. That is just the probability of having one of those floods in a given year. You can have back-to-back hundreds, or 100 and a 500, or 100-year and then a week later 500, and then another week later 100-year storm. We've seen it here in the Northeast Florida region that you have multiple storms like this. And that just occurs when the ground is saturated and you have a whole lot of rain and water is going to travel the path of least resistance. The other type of flooding that's incorporated into the vulnerability assessment is storm surge. That's when you get a hurricane and it just shoves all that water from the ocean right up on the land. We're all very familiar with that in the Northeast Florida region. The other thing is that we all know about is the tidal flooding, or nuisance flooding, or sunny day flooding. You've seen it, it's a bright sunny day and there's a puddle of water covering half a road just because it was a really high tide. It was a king tide coupled with a whole lot of rain in the last couple days. We've seen that, of course, with some of the recent hurricanes in the last few years. The other thing that the state mandates we look at, while there's no formal guidance on how to do it yet at the state level, although that is being heavily worked on, is a compound flood event. And that occurs when multiple flood events happen simultaneously. And the problem with studying compound flooding is you just can't go, well, we're going to have 2 feet of water from this event and 4 feet of water from this event. Well, that means we're going to have 6 feet of water. No problem. Let's plan for that. No, the hydraulic changes are very intense on things like that. And so that is what we have been working on the last year, is a compound flooding analysis for Flagler County to determine what those effects of a compound event would be on the communities and critical assets in the area. So the other aspect of vulnerability assessments that basically gets folded in to each one of the previous flood hazards is sea level rise. The state recognizes that sea level rise is a threat to coastal communities in the state of Florida, and these are based on NOAA projections 2022. So as you can see, there's low, intermediate, high, and high. That means in our lifetimes, we're probably expected to see anywhere from 1 to 4 feet of sea level rise based on those projections. And so we take those models for the 100-year storms, the 500-year storms, the storm surge, the tidal flooding, and then we add these sea level rise projections based on 2040 and 2070. And we look at intermediate and intermediate low for sea level rise projections right now. A lot of municipalities, a lot of counties will go above and beyond and add additional sea level rise projections just so they have additional models in case, for some reason, that the low or intermediate low doesn't match what actually happens in practice, so that they have hard scientifically backed data to make informed decisions from. Okay, so the state has a couple of requirements and the state has a couple of recommendations. So the state requirements are data. You just need a complete list of all of that exhaustive list of assets. You need an exposure analysis, which is nothing more than looking at what depth of water you are going to see at each one of those critical assets. Is the lift station going to see 2 feet or 4 feet or 5 feet, what have you? And then there's a sensitivity analysis, which expands on the exposure. So the exposure gives you depth. Sensitivity gives you how affected that asset is going to be. So, for example, the sensitivity of a green space park is going to be far different than the sensitivity of a historic downtown district with old buildings that will not bounce back nearly as fast as the green space or something like that. So we measure the sensitivity of each one of those assets based on a number of categories and essentially what kind of asset they are, and to know how fast they're going to bounce back, if they're completely non-recoverable in the event of a storm, something along those lines. So those are the three requirements by the state. The state also recommends community outreach and public presentation of the findings. Again, here I am doing that because the state didn't mandate it, but it is absolutely something we wanted to do as part of the grant program. And again, this is all part of a state grant program from the Resilient Florida Coastlines program. So Flagler County did not pay any money for this. This comes directly from the state as a state mandated item. The other things that are recommended are focus area workshopping by a steering committee. So this was done. There are some focus areas and focus categories that Flagler County selected. Transportation, the beaches, and critical infrastructure are the big three things that Flagler County wanted to prioritize in their vulnerability assessment and forthcoming adaptation plan. So, the Northeast Florida Regional Council partnered with Half and Associates to complete the vulnerability assessment portion of the project. And so we completed that at the end of 2024, and that the vulnerability assessment is available on the Resilient First Coast website. And you can go there at any point in time, look at the maps that were generated for Flagler County based on any of the flood hazards identified. You can look at asset categories, whether it be historical or architectural assets, or the critical infrastructure, transportation, or green space. You can look at any of those maps. They're all freely available. Again, the report is also available. That was done by the NEFRC and HAF, so you can view exactly what they found and what we found if you should choose. So the results of the vulnerability assessment highlight what we all know, that the tidal, storm surge, rainfall, and compound flooding events for Beverly Beach, Palm Coast, Flagler Beach, Marineland, and the rest of coastal Flagler are currently and will remain a risk from some of these hazards. This necessitates the need for the coastal communities to adapt to the current and future conditions, which is why we did the vulnerability assessment, so you know what current conditions look like with hardback data and what the future could bring. The vulnerability assessment also highlights the risk beyond the coastal communities. So the image here is of a 500-year storm for transportation assets in western Flagler. Yes, that doesn't really affect Palm Coast, but it definitely shows that water is going to move no matter where you are. So it's not just the coastal communities, it's the inland communities, it's everywhere. It is not an isolated thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I'm really here, is talk about the compound flooding analysis. So we partnered with Taylor Engineering to do a compound flooding analysis, where they took the data from the vulnerability assessment, and then they took USGS compound flooding data and developed a model. And as part of this model, they overlaid the vulnerability assessment along top of the compound flooding event, just so you can get a real clear image of what the difference and why it's so important to study compound flood events and why it's so difficult. So this image right here is again from Crescent Lake. The next image will be from Palm Coast, but the hashed marks, the hashed line outline is what the vulnerability assessment data shows. The blue is what the compound flooding event shows. So as you can see, it is far more exacerbated on a compound flood event than just a single storm event. So I want to make that very stark, that it's important to have multiple models, multiple sets of data, and weigh them all appropriately. So here is coastal Flagler. As you can see, that the hash mark is very clear, and then you can see where that hash mark ends, and then the blue continues on and in the event of a compound flood event. The analysis showed that there's a flood depth difference of almost 5 feet in some areas against certain scenarios against the standard vulnerability assessment. So that is 5 feet of additional water that was not accounted for in the original vulnerability assessment. Having this model really will allow the municipalities and Flagler County to prioritize implementation and grant funding and target specific things that will be needed in the future to protect against some of these flood hazards. So this is with a sea level rise projection. So this is a 2040 intermediate low. We saw the curves earlier. This is about 2 feet, give or take, and this is a standard storm event. So you can see that some areas we're seeing almost 4 feet of difference in the flood waters compared to a vulnerability assessment to the compound flooding analysis. It's very much targeted at the intercoastal area, but again, this is just one scenario with one sea level rise projection. So in addition to conducting the compound flooding analysis and the original vulnerability assessment, Flagler County was also given the opportunity to develop an adaptation plan. And what an adaptation plan is simply a list of measures that can be done in the near and medium term. Flagler County and the NEFRC have selected near and medium, so 1 to 5, and then 5 to 10 years out. So these are all measures that could be done in that 1 to 10 year time. And it covers everything from beach renourishment to road raising to bioswales to you name it, it's part of this project. And what the adaptation plan is, it's a key in the door. So to get a grant funding from the state for implementation projects, so you want to raise a lift station, or you want to add flood barriers to your wastewater treatment plant. The state's not going to give you money because you want to do that. You're going to need to have these measures outlined and shown that this is an affected asset. And so this is essentially the key in the door to get you that implementation money, to show, okay, well, we have a ready-made plan, we have an asset that needs protection, we want the money for this because we went through all of these steps to do this. So the adaptation plan is both the key in the door, and it's a list of adaptation measures that can just be pulled from, that have been backed by NOAA, backed by USGS, backed by engineering firms, that these are all the green solutions, is nature-based solutions. So instead of adding a seawall, adding natural landscaping with revetment to help buffer against storm surge. These are all things that are really coming into play right now as the research gets far more intense. Okay, so again, I measured roadway and evacuation routes, beaches and coastal zones, and critical infrastructure. So these are just some measures that I pulled. Bioswales and roadway elevations. You can see what a bioswale is. It is a green space that is designed to hold water. So instead of just digging a trench on the side of the road, you dig the trench on the side of the road, and then you add vegetation, which contains rooted structures, which will allow water to drain far more effectively. We've all seen what happens when you wipe out a whole bunch of trees from an area and then it rains. That water sticks around a lot longer than it used to. So this is a very low cost, very easy, simple solution to implement into certain areas. And again, elevating lift stations and moving utilities underground, these are massive infrastructure projects that cost a lot of money, but you can't get that money unless you have it identified, so it's kind of a chicken and the egg kind of situation. So how can this be used? So the vulnerability assessment and compound flooding analysis can be used in a number of different ways. You can alter your land development codes. You can put this into your comprehensive plan updates under resiliency or beach renourishment areas, or you can change your stormwater master plan based on this data that you know you're going to see these kind of storm events, and allow you and maybe force developers to plan for additional stormwater ponds more than the bare minimum. These are just some real simple solutions. You can also use this data to prioritize specific projects based on depth and sensitivity, like I spoke. You can also, this is all GIS data. This is all readily available, freely available data, so it can be incorporated into any ArcGIS system and have a dashboard created where you can overlay all these critical assets and look at depths of each individual one and create maps. And so there really the sky's the limit with whatever you want to do with it. It's getting it from the maps and the data to the internet. And again, this is the critical infrastructure map. You can go on the Resilient First Coast website right now and pull a copy of that map and look at exactly this. So this is a critical infrastructure with a 100-year storm and you can see that the red is 2, and then 10 feet or more is purple. This does show all the piping and assets and hydrants and everything like that, but it gives you a real good indicator of how you can use this in the future.
I just had a quick question.
Go for it.
So flood depth, so we're talking about
water.
What amount of flooding is required to compromise this object? This critical
Essentially, yes. So this image here is just showing inundation. Basically, we took the map, we took the topography, and then we overlaid the standardized flood depth for this storm event on top of it and color-coded it. So you can see at this particular space, we're going to see this much flood depth. We have an exhaustive Excel document that has a complete listing of each depth at each asset to break down even further. But again, it is easily incorporated into a dashboard.
Red, obviously, with the color coding.
Is actually, oddly enough, is the least intensive.
Okay, so.
Purple is bad, red is good.
Purple is bad, okay. Gotcha. Typically, red would be.
Typically, yes,
warning.
but the state doesn't have any color coding standardization when it comes to the map generation.
Okay.
So there actually isn't any real.
Yeah, I was confused because my perception was the red was bad, but in terms of the other maps that you showed, Palm Coast Parkway isn't at risk in comparison to other parts of the cities in terms of flooding.
Okay. This is coming to the end of my presentation, so we'll get to some questions here. So again, what can you do? What can we provide? We can provide all of the data. We have we have a complete exhaustive list of all the GIS data. It is freely available if you have a GIS WizKid individual, they can absolutely create magic with this information. Again, you can really do all sorts of stuff. We also have additional data and modeling that is not really part of this. We developed an extreme rainfall model as part of a region and statewide multi-regional project to look at future extreme rainfall in the 2040 and the 2070 time frame. So instead of just looking at this, you can incorporate additional data into that. The QR code here takes you directly to the Resilient First Coast website, where we have our vulnerability assessment portal. You can actually look at the vulnerability assessments of all of the counties in our region, to include Putnam, Nassau, Flagler County. Baker County is still in progress, so we don't have that one, but we have the Duval County as well. So we've tried to create a comprehensive location to keep everything for the region so that everybody can just be better prepared for flooding events. And with that, that is my quick presentation.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the council?
This might be a tag team between you and staff here, so feel free to whomever has the answers to jump in. On one of the first slides, you mentioned state-funded resilient projects.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any of those ongoing right now? And if not, do we foresee any that we'll be trying to get funding for?
Yep, we don't have any right now. They haven't even made the final report yet, right? So once this becomes final, this is certain, like Andrew mentioned, this will be a tool that we can utilize to piggyback off of, right? Our vulnerability assessment of the compound flooding, identify X areas, right? So now we know what our internal drainage issues are, but we can piggyback this report and say, hey, it's identified here. We want to go get some grants, get some funding, whether it be DEP, resiliency grants, whatever it may be, yeah.
Okay, so what is the timeline to finalize this? Who does it go to at this point? And then what are the projects that you most often see as a result of these reports?
So this is still really in its infancy in our region. Only a couple of locations have really even even started the adaptation planning process. And Flagler County, is my understanding, is the first one between Putnam and Nassau County to even conduct the compound flooding assessment. Duval County is working on a real-time compound flooding methodology, but that is not yet ready for prime time. So this is like the tip of the spear here as far as adaptation and implementation planning. But a lot of times this is used to target specific assets that, again, boots on the ground, you know where your drainage problems are. You know what floods on a regular basis, but you can't go to a grant funding entity, either the federal or state or other entities, and go, hey, we know this floods here, give us some money. No, this allows you to have a scientifically data-driven grant application to show, hey, no, we have 4 lift stations that we know flood on a regular basis, and we need to elevate them. And this is why we need to elevate them. We have concrete knowledge that, yes, it does flood here based on boots on the ground. And then we also have the data-driven science to show that these are incredibly sensitive items, and they are at risk, and we want to prioritize these projects in the future. So most of the time, this is wastewater treatment plants that are going to be targeted first. Roadway raising is really expensive, but that is a major thing that a lot of places are tackling. A lot of places are using this to jumpstart a complete countywide hydrological study to determine exactly where water is running. Yes, this just shows where the estuarine like water goes. I hope that answered your question as best I could.
Thank you. No, so what is the timeline then to finalize
Oh, this will be done by the end of the year. The compound flooding report will be available in December.
Okay.
We're finalizing the adaptation plan right now, but the compound flooding report is complete and done and is available. That was done by Taylor Engineering for the Northeast Florida Regional Council.
Okay, thank you. Then the other question that I had, and this is probably more for staff, and this is more of like can we kind of keep it on our radar type of thing. We know, and you mentioned it, more concrete, less trees equals more flooding. We still have over 4,000 infill lots that are ready to be, or that can be built on. And I've mentioned this before, but have we taken a serious look at whether or not we can use any type of funding to purchase strategically placed infill lots to continue to be places where water can run off to, rather than building houses on them? Because I think that there's one near me actually, they're less than ideal to build on. They're not very appealable lots. We could probably get them for a cheaper amount of money, but they could provide space for water to run and drain rather than putting in more concrete and
Would
creating
we
more flooding.
modify these in any way?
I don't know.
To create capacity or whatever the
Yeah,
case
I'm not
is?
sure. Maybe. I mean, he
I can answer
mentioned
that
it.
at a little bit of a regional level. There are some major initiatives in the region. I can speak to one that I'm familiar with, is the CLAM project up in Nassau County, which is the Conservation and Land Management Program. And basically what that does is that the county like solicited the entire county on specific land that should be purchased and put into conservation for both a recreation and drainage purposes, and it stays in basically forever. And so that is something that a number of the municipalities and counties in the region are actively looking at, is buying land for the purposes of permanent drainage use in conservation. Wetlands and salt marshes drain more than any other kind of necessity. So keeping as much wetland as possible as part of some of these developments would be a priority, because but adding any sort of rooted structure or greenery goes a long way in helping flood mitigation.
No, and I appreciate that, and we've seen it. We've seen that the more we build, the less place water has to go.
We see it everywhere.
Right.
I mean, we're in fact, the regional council is working on a region-wide vulnerability assessment to piggyback off the data we have here to identify regional trends in flooding for the entire area.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So is there anything like that on our radar?
It's not on our radar, but it will be, and not just on the infill lots, but more particularly the drop lots, which are kind of part of our infill lots.
It is, yeah, they are.
Yeah, so a lot of those are already lower elevation, right? They're already receiving the waters and providing that benefit.
Right.
So maybe there is an opportunity to obtain some of those, and I think maybe HMGP could be a grant avenue through the Local Mitigation Strategy Group. That could be a possibility that we could start introducing that. They're already serving as that, right? It would be awesome to just acquire a lot of those lands and just put them in conservation, just have them continue. But kind of marrying that with this study and what our stormwater master plan is already telling us, we know some areas that potentially could use additional capacity, and this is probably what Mr. Miller was talking about, was do we have to do anything to it? There may be some lands that are already higher in elevation that you can turn, create ponds, create capacity, divert some stormwater blockages, right? So there are stuff that we can do, but it has to be all kind of married together, where we have to take our master plan and do it, right? It has to be done, it has to be studied, not just.
Yeah, so if, I mean, we can just keep those in mind.
Correct.
Drop lots, infill lots,
Yes.
whatever it may be, as we're looking at all of this holistically, let's keep that in mind, that those could still be a resource for us as well.
Agreed.
So, thank you.
I just had something to add. Based on our conversations with DEP and Tallahassee, a lot of what's discussed in this study are the key words that they mentioned in terms of their grant programs for wastewater, stormwater, et cetera, water quality, flooding issues, things like that. So I think this is a step in the right direction in terms of having the correct data to back up the request for funds from the state when it comes to that, when these grant programs become fully operational, let's say, because they've been restricted in some ways in the past. So, I think it'll help us to access some of those dollars.
And I'm sorry, I had another question, because you mentioned the west side, actually this slide right here. When you all do the vulnerability assessments, do you take into account evacuation routes?
That is considered a critical asset for the state. So evacuation routes are measured, absolutely.
And then do the studies also take into account rates of growth?
The study doesn't account for projected growth, but you can use your own projected growth patterns and where in your comprehensive plan and land use plan, as far as where your future growth is projected, and look at your future growth against some of these maps and I mean, you could put all of that on a GIS overlay and see, well, we're expected to have massive growth and things here. Well, what does the vulnerability assessment, the compound flooding study say? Ooh, we should not let the growth happen there, and instead try to push growth elsewhere. That's what a lot of the region is looking to do, is to take this information and help control growth in a more sustainable way.
That's going to be key for us. So if we can just be very mindful of using that as a tool.
Yeah, we won't be using it just for the tool for grants, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, particularly as we get more and more handcuffed from Tallahassee as to how we can control growth in our community, if we can use tools like this to say we will be more resilient if we can control growth in this way or that way, I think we need to do it. We need to use every tool we can to keep as much home rule as far as keeping our community safe and being resilient against flooding.
And we've heard discussions of using this as more of a carrot instead of a stick with developers. Be like, okay, well, the data shows that there's going to be extensive flooding in this area. Maybe adding some nature-based solutions to help curtail some of that flood mitigation. And so basically, give the developer a carrot, and the county or the municipality benefits a lot from the nature-based solutions or the increased stormwater pond capacity. These kind of things are active discussion in the region.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And for community development, Ray, when we're looking at MPDs, some of the big scale MPDs out west, something to keep in mind for sure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, just to
I agree with the points being made. Now, the Northeast Regional Council is a true asset for this Northeast region. For a lot of reasons, this is a good example of it. This study, they did it. We didn't have to pay for it, and it provides important information, not just to us, but as we go forward, whether it's legislation or requests for grants, things like that, it gives you a basis. If you don't have some kind of independent analysis like this, you really get hurt when you go up against other people looking for the grants. So the Northeast Regional Council does provide this kind of support throughout this seven county area here in Northeast Florida, and it's a good example of how they can really help. And one of our reps is on it. I was on that board for a long time, and we've been very active in the county. And I think the city, I actually had to force somebody from Palm Coast to get on the council here a few years back. It does help, and so it's important for us, I think, this point I make is to keep a rep on that council to make sure we're represented properly and get our fair share of the funds.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the dais?
Carmelo, were you trying to jump in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one last thing. That watershed master plan, right? So, and our stormwater master plan. Our stormwater master plan was late 2019, right? So it's already about 6 years old. Within the next few years, it should definitely be updated, right? Just kind of take a look at it, revisit what projects were accomplished off of it, what is still important, anything new. But watershed master plan kind of ties into this, right? Identifying what are the watersheds, right? Where is Palm Coast Parkway draining into? Where is the S section? Where is the K section draining into? And tying it with land development and potential code stuff, right? If there's areas that are volume critical or volume sensitive, maybe we need to up the code a little bit more. Perhaps new development within there can retain more X amount of water, or right? We need to study it and so we could have better future growth.
Yeah, thank you.
That was just what I wanted to add.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything else? All right, sir, stand by. Andrew, we're going to open this up for public comment, so if you have to follow up, okay?
Of course.
All right, we're going to open this up for public comment. Does anyone have any public comment concerning this presentation? Good for you, Andrew, no follow-ups. All right, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any closing comments for Andrew? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move into presentation 3, proprietary funds budget.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Gwen Ragsdale, your Budget and Procurement Manager. Staff is here to present to you today the proprietary fund budgets. Presentation overview for today. Your operating budgets for stormwater, water and wastewater, building, collection and sanitation, and information technology enterprise fund. The capital budgets for stormwater, water, and wastewater will be presented in August. Council received the detailed worksheets last week for the budgets that will be presented today. So now I will turn it over to the presentation to Director Carl Cody, who will present the Stormwater Management Fund budget.
Thank you, Ms. Ragsdale.
Okay, good morning. Carl Cody, Director of Stormwater Engineering. So I know you heard from us recently. We gave an overview of our stormwater department. So we put together just a few slides today, kind of hitting some of the key points. And this slide highlights some of the accomplishments that the department has so far this year. You'll notice in the presentation that the operations division has been eliminated, and the inspectors from the operations division were reassigned to the building department as residential site inspectors. These staff were funded with permit fees that were collected, so they weren't being funded by the rates of stormwater rates, just to make that clear for everybody. This move provided more support to our inspectors and provided efficiencies and workload. And with that change, we took one supervisor and one manager position and reclassified them to boots on the ground positions. So we're able to get more efficiency and get more work done in that regard. So, back on July 8th, we went into more detail on these specifics, but those were the highlights from that presentation. So regarding the proposed budget highlights shown here on the slide, when the rate study was done in 2023, it indicated the creation of a concrete asphalt crew. This crew will be performing repairs to both the concrete and asphalt structures after pipe replacements are made. In addition, the crews will repair spillways, culverts, head walls, and other structures in need of repairs throughout the stormwater system. Having a dedicated crew for this work saves considerable amount of time in restoration of the work zones, and it is a 5-person crew. 2 of those FTEs were part of the reorganization that I mentioned on the previous slide, so the new budget has 3 FTEs, and all vehicles and equipment were purchased and have been delivered. We're also asking for 2 additional FTEs in the upcoming budget. These positions will complete the hybrid crew. That's our hybrid swale ditch crew. A normal swale crew consists of 6 to 7 people. The hybrid crew created was a 4-person crew. With the addition of these 2 FTEs, we can have a full-time crew working simultaneously with trenching the swales and clearing the interface between the ditch and the swale. So it will create a more efficient rehab of the swale work. And then, as discussed in the July 8th, the department is evaluating contracting swale regrading to complete the backlog of the work orders. That contractor has been on site for about a week now, so they're working their way through, creating their process, working things out. So, time will tell to see, how, effective that will be. So we did include some dollars in the upcoming budget to continue those work efforts next year if the work makes sense, if it's cost efficient, if the work product is good. We had some dollars allocated for that so we can continue to make headway on the backlog of swale work orders. So on the next slide, this goes over the FTE changes. So, as discussed previously, 6 positions were transferred to the general fund as part of our mid-year reorganization. In addition to the 6 FTEs, 7 positions were transferred to the Stormwater Engineering Division, and 1 was transferred into a vacant position in the Stormwater Engineering staff as well. The remaining positions were transferred to Stormwater Maintenance. There's 5 additional FTEs requested in the upcoming budget to fill the concrete asphalt crew and the hybrid crew, and so overall it results in 1 additional FTE change from this year. So I'm looking at our revenue. So looks like a big change, but in '25 we had ARPA funds that helped fund the London Waterway project, and we also had our stormwater loan. So once you back that out, revenues have a slight increase from the current year. So the overall summary, you can see with the proposed changes in staffing, we actually have a reduction in budget by almost 2%. Our maintenance staff is an increase of 12.6%, and it's really due to the additional personnel of the transfer from the staff that moved over from operations, as well as the additional staff we're requesting in the new budget. And then in operations, you can see it zeroes out next fiscal year with staff shifting to general fund, building, engineering, and maintenance, and stormwater. And then in engineering, the biggest change is really addressing the additional staff that moved over from operations. And then our non-departmental includes some costs for debt service costs that were part of the loan that was obtained. So not much change in those altogether. Any questions?
Thank you, Carl. Any questions from the dais? Councilman Miller, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to reiterate the changes that we're seeing in regards to some of these large percentages, you know, going down 100%, going up 60. Doing the math, most of it is accounted for by just transfers of personnel from one to another. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'd be interested to see what that looks like if you back those out. I know, you know, as part of this, it's not on there and we can easily do the math, but just for the public's visibility, I know we probably can't do that today, but, you know, just so we can see, okay, if you back out this personnel transfer, it's really just a 2% increase over last year's budget, or maybe it's a minus 3%. So it doesn't seem so extreme. I know we have to reflect what's actually happening, but just to see that, or maybe a note at the bottom, just to show what those percentages may
If you
look
go
like.
back a few slides, this slide here, so you can see maintenance went up 1.45 million, operations went down almost 2.2, and engineering went up 810. So if you add the 810 and 1.45, it's like 2.3, so it went up a couple $100,000
Right.
over current budget.
This is a good representation. Thank you.
Maybe you said this and I missed it, but why did we do the transfer of the 6 to the general fund rather than stormwater?
There's many reasons. A lot of things that we're doing were tied to the building permit function, you know, with occupancy, with site grading. It was a lot of work outside of the stormwater system because a lot grading, you know, drains to the swales. We are still doing the culvert pipe surveys and the design of the culvert pipes, and all of that work is still being done by stormwater engineering. So the surveyor stayed in our entity, but the inspectors, being under the building official with stop work orders, dealing with the contractors, it made sense. The site development inspectors are in planning that do site development inspections, and residential site inspectors being underneath building official made more sense since they were doing more permitting functions rather than stormwater functions.
So shouldn't there be an interfund transfer then to account for?
The revenues, yeah, the revenues that were coming into stormwater for those staff are now going into the community development fund. Because they were being paid by permanent fees.
Yeah.
So those permit fee revenues are now not coming to stormwater anymore, they're going to the other department.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate that clarification, but I'm referring, so let's say, are all 6 of these employees, is 100% of their work now no longer serving the stormwater function at all?
Correct.
Okay, so there's nothing that previously was stormwater related that these 6 employees will be doing?
Correct. Doing both types of function at one time. They were doing citizen work orders, but due to the workload of the permit inspections, that had to be transferred to other staff within stormwater. So they were only doing permit inspection at the end of the day, and that's when we had to start having those discussions about moving them over.
Got it, okay, thank you.
And this is cleaner in terms of funding, right? When you're paying potentially part of what their services are with stormwater funding because they're doing like a hybrid role versus now just doing a building related role, then they're being paid by the permitting fees rather than by, you know, user rates or stormwater fees or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, I agree. My concern was that if stormwater-related work was still being done, then there needed to be a transfer of funding for that over to general
Yes,
fund to
yeah.
account. But if that's not occurring, then we don't need to worry about it.
Correct.
Okay.
You got anything, Councilman Sullivan?
No, I think it looks like just trying to make things work better, more efficient.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Carl?
No.
Okay, we'll open this up.
Thank you, Carl.
We'll open this up for general comment. Hang out for a second. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
Thank you. Pete Brasal and myself are going to present the water and wastewater utility operations budget. City Council adopted in March of 2025, Ordinance 2025-04, revisiting the rates and charges of the city's utility system, providing for annual adjustments of all utility rates and charges to account for inflation. This budget accounts for the proposed rate increases as per the ordinance. The department's vision, mission, and values are critical to maintaining a reliable, strong, and efficient organization. The mission is to provide essential high-quality water services, meeting community needs while protecting public health and the environment.
We will review in detail the department's operational budgets and expected revenues. There is a total of 1 new FTE added to the utility in wastewater treatment plant number 2, and that is for a utility systems operator. There were 2 FTEs moved from customer service division to the utility administration division, and 1 FTE moved from the utility finance to the wastewater treatment plant number 2, and that was for a lead position. This is a big picture view of utility fund revenues. Overall change is approximately 16.9 million or 23.7%. Charges for services increase was calculated based on the recent utility rate study. These rates are to support the capital investment as identified by council. We will review the R&R transfer and debt service in the non-departmental portion of the budget. The $750,000 in grants added to fiscal year 2025 is for the expected Hurricane Milton reimbursements. We are currently working with FEMA, but the progress has been slow. We have not received any obligations to date. Other revenues include interest income on our investments, as well as insurance settlements from Hurricane Milton. Appropriated fund balance, as in past years, continues to be used for one-time capital type expenditures, as well as R&R transfers, as we will review in the non-departmental budget. The rate study completed accounted for usage of fund balance for R&R projects. Next is big picture summary of the utility expenditure.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
On the fund balance appropriations? Why is that in a negative balance?
So the negative is the change between, it's a decrease from 25 to 26.
Looking at the change, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're reducing that amount. This is based on state appropriations?
No, so that is fund balance that's being used in the budget. That's your fund balance appropriations. That's actually usage of reserves.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And as I was saying, the summary of expenditures, we'll review those individually in the next few slides. So I'll now turn it over to Pete.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning, Peter.
I'm going to go over each division one by one. So I'll starting out with the wastewater pumping division. They're responsible to pump the wastewater from the collection system to the treatment plants. So on this particular division, to meet the city's required cost reductions, the wastewater pumping division identified and implemented cuts totaling a little over $146,000. This was to maintain operation budget level to be consistent with the recently approved rate study. We will continue to monitor and adjust if needed in the future. Moving on to wastewater collection, this is defines all our wastewater pipes going from the pumping lift stations to the wastewater plant. In this division, in the wastewater collection budget for the upcoming fiscal year, you'll see a reduction in operational expenses, specifically in the fleet replacement allocation. This reduction is because we are purchasing a new vacuum truck using funds from this year's budget. Because that major purchase is now being addressed, next year's operational allocation for fleet replacement will naturally be lower, as there is no large vehicle replacements planned for that cycle. Okay, wastewater treatment plant number 1, a reduction in operational expenses for wastewater treatment plant number 1 is primarily due to a strategic decision to shift certain equipment-related costs to the capital repair and maintenance R&R funding. Wastewater treatment plant number 2. We will be reestablishing a previously frozen lead operator position to support operations and provide additional oversight and technical expertise. Second, we are adding a new operator position to accommodate the fact that we will be treating a higher volume of wastewater. Water treatment plant number 1. This budget remains relatively flat. We don't really have any increases nor decreases, so that's probably going to remain as is. Water treatment plant number 2, as flow increases, water treatment plant number 2 will experience operational demands such as chemical applications, electricity, and sludge hauling to ensure we meet all regulatory requirements and maintain high treatment production and standards. Water treatment plant number 3. The increase in the operating expenditures is due to the reestablishment of a regulatory-related expense that was previously paid out of a different division. As part of our ongoing effort to improve budgetary transparency and accuracy, we are reassigning that expense to the correct division where the service will be performed. The Water Quality Division. The proposed budget for the Water Quality Division reflects a 14.7% increase for the upcoming fiscal year. This increase is primarily driven by the need to maintain regulatory compliance related to sampling and laboratory analysis. As regulatory requirements continue to evolve, particularly in areas such as emerging contaminants and stricter testing schedules, we must ensure that our sampling protocols and analytical capacity meet all federal and state standards. The increase also accounts for the additional supplies and materials needed to properly collect, store, and transport compliant samples. The water distribution. As part of the water distribution budget outlook, we want to note that meter installation projects may decrease in the upcoming fiscal year. This is largely due to a reduction in new construction and development activity. With fewer new homes being built, there's less demand for new water service connections and therefore fewer meters needing to be installed. We also have a surplus of about 2,000 water meters by the end of this fiscal year in stock and inventory.
So before we move forward with the other slides that I'll be presenting, does council have any questions for Pete?
I just had a question about the, we talked about the, I think it was a regulatory cost that was transferred from another division. Yeah. Which division was that transferred from?
It was in water quality, and that's been like that for so many years. And the cost for that was roughly $7,500, and that was for the industrial waste discharge permit for Plant 3. And so we decided that to put it where it belongs.
And then this is not budget related, but those pilots that were going to happen at Water Plant 1.
Yes.
When are they scheduled for?
They're pretty much done. One of them's completed.
Oh, we've completed them.
Yes, and it's just our engineering firm is, the consultant is analyzing the results for the clear box for the filters. We're still in progress for the ozone, potential ozone, for the 30% bypass and granular activated carbon, which is helpful for removing organics. But so far, I don't have all the results yet, but so far we were able to reduce the turbidity from the filters, which is kind of a problem, from coming out of the filters, the effluent from the filters, which was roughly about maybe 1 or 2 NTUs to like 0.01, if I remember correctly. So if this goes through, it's going to help tremendously for our water quality for that area and for that plant.
Good. I'm happy to hear that because you know, that's the aesthetic quality of the water that's served for the residents that's served by Water Plant 1 it's always been kind of an ongoing you know, complaint, so to speak. So we'll be very happy to see, you know, where we can go in the future to institute this and try to you know, make those residents happier about their water.
We expect good results from those pilot studies.
Sounds, based on what you said, it sounds like there's great results.
And there's other phases of improvements in that plant that's scheduled for for next year.
Gotcha.
You have anything, Vice Mayor?
I don't.
Councilman Sullivan?
Nothing more?
Nothing. I don't really have anything for you. Well, this is unrelated. The talk about the Ritz-Carlton going out on the barrier island. You know about that, right?
No.
The Ritz-Carlton, how many buildings are they going to be building? Anybody know?
Yeah, I know that.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, can you check into that? I'd like to know, well, I'm assuming the water's going to have to come from us.
Sure.
I'd like to know what kind of impact that's going to have on us moving forward.
Okay, correct.
Have you heard about it?
I have
Pete?
not, but I will find out about it, and I'll
Okay.
get back with you on that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Pete. We will review the utility administration budget. There are a few changes in this division. There were 2 positions transferred from customer service for approximately $166,000. We're also funding the recently hired utility director, as well as accounting for regular salary and benefit increases. The decrease in operational expenditures is related to decreasing amounts allocated for consulting services related to projects, as well as decreases in repairs and maintenance. The decrease in the customer service budget is a combination of the 2 positions transferred to admin. The interfund transfer was a one-time fiscal year 2025 expenditure for IT improvements related to Amazon Connect, and an increase in operational expenditures as it relates to the allocation of facilities from the non-departmental budget. The decrease in utility finance budget is related to the accounting position that was reclassed and transferred to wastewater plant number 2 for a lead position. Utility construction management engineering has been moved to the utility capital projects budget due to 100% of its staff time being spent on capital projects. You will see those at the next capital projects presentation. For utility non-departmental operating expenditures has decreased by 1.1 million. 232,000 reflects removing the facilities allocation from this budget to be directly reflected in each department's budget. This allows for better alignment of costs and provides a better tool to determine total cost by function. 338,000 for the reduction of the electronic fees, and the balance is related to allocating professional services to capital according to the rate study. Oops, sorry. As you can see, interfund transfers have increased as planned to provide additional funding for R&R projects, and the debt service accounts for the issuance of the 2025 utility revenue bonds. Both of these items are as outlined in the rate study. Do we have any questions on the utilities operational budgets before we move forward?
Any questions from the dais?
I have a quick question. Commercial hauling, is that its own enterprise fund, or is that in and out of general right now?
So commercial hauling as the revenues?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are accounted for in the general fund.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
Want to have anything else?
Is that, you're referring to commercial trash?
Yeah, like the franchise fees we collect.
That's right, we do have a franchise fee on that.
Okay, Helena, go right ahead.
Thank you. We will move forward with the building permits fund. Budget highlights for building fund: a decline in permits equates to a reduction in revenue, so the expenditures have been reduced to account for this. Currently, the 10% permit fee reduction that has been in effect for a year and a half now is projected to end, and a fee study is proposed in this budget to ensure that we maintain cost recovery for the fund. Currently, there are 25.63 FTEs in the building fund. For fiscal year 2026, that will be 25.33. The reduction of the 0.3 FTE is the result of the transfer from this budget to the code to better align the administrative tasks as discussed last Tuesday when we reviewed the code budget. Total budget for building for fiscal year 26 is 3.7 million. a reduction of 10.2%. The decrease in revenue is due to decline in permits and the elimination of the 10% fee. The decrease in personnel service is due to moving the 0.3 FTE, as well as currently freezing 2 positions, the deputy chief building official and the building inspector position. Do we have any questions? Building.
I have one. So do we maintain a reserve balance for this fund?
Yes, we do. So currently, previous council's decision was to reduce that reserve, and that was the issuance of the discount, right?
Okay.
It was at 50% for a while, and then I believe last summer, if I'm not mistaken, the discount was reduced to 10%, and now we're proposing to eliminate the discount.
And so what do we currently have as our reserve?
So the June 30th reserve was at 1.8 million.
Okay.
We are under the 2 million target, but we are allowed by statute the average of the previous 4 fiscal years, which that would be more around the 4 million target.
So 1 year's worth of expenditures, essentially.
So 1.8 would be about half. Yes.
So right now, we're basically carrying about 6 months worth of reserve in case of, a natural disaster that halts all construction, things like that. So I don't know what everybody thinks about that in terms of the percent.
I mean, I'm in favor of getting rid of the discount altogether. Let's fund it to the max amount we can.
We do need some sort of process because we're only allowed to carry the average, that if we start coming up to that number, that we've got to reduce automatically because we'll be breaking the law if we're holding those dollars.
Well, I think we can,
You can refund.
well, we can approve getting rid of the discount now and then put it back in place if we need to in the future, right?
Yes, so that is a available tool. What we are proposing is a fee review. The last review was done 4 years ago. So I think it's time to update, right, our rates to make sure that we're going to be at a target that we want to be, therefore avoiding, right, either overage or under.
I would agree. I think depending on how that is, I'm not sure how we can write these rates, but something that we have our rates, and as we approach the cap of what we have administratively, they could be reduced to prevent us from going over. Trying to keep us as close to 100% of our reserve as possible without
I thought the reserve
going
was
over.
to get it to a 1-year reserve.
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Why were we going to get,
Yeah, I know just the issue is that like you get close to that and then we have to have another meeting where we then direct and have another resolution or something go through to reduce the rates, and then we keep doing that back and forth.
Right.
I wonder if there's something that we can do that's automatic so that it just administratively happens, that we keep it as close to 100 as possible.
Like if it gets at 90%, we cut it off.
Yeah, like we drop the percentage of the rates, give a discount on the rates so that we're not going over 100.
So then, Helena, do you need direction from council as far as getting consensus to eliminate the discount now, and then doing the rate study?
I think that's what we would propose as staff, yes, would be to eliminate the 10% discount. I think there is a notice, a 60-day notice that needs to be provided by the chief building official, and updating the calculations in the next fiscal year. And if you're looking then for different types of options and how you'd want to implement, or at what you want to set your target to be, do you want to do the 4-year average, below the 4-year average? We can have those discussions when the rates are presented. And then if you need to come up with a tool, right, just like you were saying, guess the 90%, what's our action, right, or guess the 80%, what you want to see, we can also bring those to you.
Okay.
Good.
So do we
So
have
we
that?
have consensus?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Helena?
Now we will move over to collections and sanitation, and Director Matt Mansell will present that budget to council.
Good morning, Matt.
Good
Oh,
morning, Mayor and
almost
Council. How
afternoon.
are you today? Matt Mansell, your Director of Public Works, and I'll be going over the FY26 Collection and Sanitation Fund. The current number of FTEs in that division is 3, and that is, this last year we added the third, but remaining the same for FY26. That third would be the commercial compliance officer that was added with that program that I just presented, or that Alyssa just presented to you a couple of weeks ago. So again, this is the first full year with that FTE, so you'll see that in the personnel services line. In addition, we do have an annual CPI that's added to this. So this year we took a look at the June to June CPI, and it was at just over 6%. However, our contract is capped at no more than 4% CPI year over year, and that is only to the collection component of our rate. So it's actually about a 3% increase overall to the rate. So our rate would go from $33.30 to $34.37 a month. And the numbers that we're utilizing for our residential accounts for the end of FY25, we're looking at around 45,962 residential accounts that we service, and we're expecting 48,660 by the end of FY26. And pending your questions, that's the collections budget.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the dais?
I do. So by law, does collection sanitation, does that have to be its own enterprise fund?
So because it is supposed to be cost recovery, it is considered an enterprise fund. Because you have charges for services. You're not funding it with taxes. So when you think about your governmental funds, you're funding those with taxes or grants or specific revenues.
Mm-hmm.
When you move over to the proprietary fund area, you're actually charging for the usage.
Okay, so by law, then it does have to be its own
It would
enterprise
have to be
fund.
its own, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the dais?
No, thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Director Doug Akins will present the IT Enterprise Fund budgets.
Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Doug Akins, IT Director. The IT Enterprise Fund is made up of revenues from our cell tower leases as well as services related to dark fiber, such as what we provide to Flagler Schools and other partners. This fund funds 1.5 FTE. We are not requesting any FTEs for the next fiscal year. We're expecting a decrease in revenue next year based on the expiration of 2 contracts related to fiber services. This decrease is slightly offset by increases in revenue from the new cell tower leases that Council approved in the past year, as well as normal contractual increases to existing cell tower leases. One of our focuses over the past couple of years has been inventorying and documenting the assets related to the fiber network. Our approach has been to do as much of this in-house as possible, but we're now at the point where we need some expertise to come in and find some assets we can't locate and also do some more technical things, so we have budgeted some funds in this year's budget for that. As part of that documentation of the inventory, we're also finalizing a strategic plan for areas that we need to repair or close gaps in the network to better support city operations. And so we've also put funds in repairs as well as capital outlay to support those efforts. The rest of the items are just routine operational and maintenance items in the budget. Do you have any questions on the IT enterprise budget?
Question?
Can you just talk about the capital outlay again? I think I missed part of that.
Sure. So we, as part of the inventory and documenting the city's assets, we're creating a long-term plan for areas we need to improve the network or close gaps. So we set aside funds in the capital outlay to prepare for that once that plan is finalized.
Thank you.
Anything else for Doug? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Here's a look ahead. August will be our capital budgets and the final proposed budget. And then in September, we will hold our 2 public hearings. We want to remind the public that access to this presentation as well as the budget worksheets and previous presentations are available by clicking the budget preparation tile on the city's website. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Helena and Ms. Ragsdale. We're moving on to, oh, I'm sorry,
Bless you.
public comment. Is there anyone I'm sorry. Tony or Mr. Webb, you have any public comment?
Almost good afternoon. Tony Amaral, City of Palm Coast. So a couple things. Number one, it's a lot of budget to get 3 minutes of conversation over. But there were two things that stuck out to me. Your water department, your building department are both reducing expenditures and receiving less revenue because they are expecting less construction. So that kind of contradicts your extraordinary circumstances that this board has passed impact fees on, because you have literally just started reducing budgets because of these items. The other thing is, let's be clear as to why those building department reductions were in place. It's because the building department was over their allowed reserves. So those reductions were not just random reductions that were given because we had nothing better to do than support builders or anything like that. It was because by law, you had to recover and give up those costs. And that's why you brought in a study, which was a good thing, because that study found that there was misappropriation of monies from stormwater, 3 years. So the review was necessary. The review now, I understood it back then, it was kind of in a spreadsheet format. They plug in the numbers, they can get their new fees in-house, if you will, adjusted on a more regular basis, because the building department to date has never lost a penny than what they've spent. It's always been your sheds, your pools, your homes. Every permit we supply has technically been overpaying for those permits based on all this information. So I want to be clear, the reducing the fee is not because you're reducing a whatever you think it is. It was because it was required by law to compensate for the overcharges that have been historically shown through that department as a proprietary fund. So I do want that to be very clear. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any closing comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. So the reduction in operational expenditures is not due to any overage. It's because we did not raise rates enough to fund natural increases in the operational costs to the utility budget. That needs to be emphasized. We only raised rates to ensure we could put money, we could fund R&R, and knowing what we have to do for really R&R, but wastewater treatment plant 1, any expansion related issues that we're going to have to address. So that's really important to emphasize. As far as the building fund goes, we understand that there are state statutes that require us to only, or I guess limit what we're able to fund as a potential rainy day fund, you know, in that contingency budget. But I think it's incumbent upon us to come up with the policy so that we're not constantly playing this rigmarole of, do we go up, do we go down, what is the threshold? And I think based on what you were telling me, Helena, that's what we're working towards. So I look forward to seeing that presentation so that we can just come up with a policy that says, once we hit this threshold, these are the steps that we're going to take to make sure we remain in compliance. So thank you.
Yes, that is correct. So we are allowed basically the average of the past 4 years, right, which would put you right at a 1-year reserve, which is what Councilmember Sullivan was saying. It was council's decision a few years back to have the target of 2 million instead of the 4 years. That's why you're right at that 50%. I think we're at 47% right now. So it'll be up to council to set up what you want that limit to be, and then the rates will be calculated to that.
Yeah, and I also have to say too, because of the state legislation that is being put in place between last year and this year, they have now put more burdens on us to expedite reviews. There are more policies or laws in place that really put a heavier burden and responsibility on our building department to fast track certain things, which we've already talked about, impact fees cannot pay for those types of costs. They can't pay for that type of personnel. Even though it is an expense of growth, personnel cannot be paid for that way. So these are the reasons we are having to battle with those increased costs. I think we're adding personnel to building and planning to review all of these things. So it's just very important to understand that we have to do what we can with the funding that we have to make sure that we are using impact fees in every single way that we can, because we cannot use them for other growth-related costs that we're going to see. We actually saw that from the sheriff's presentation. To your point, Mayor, we can't pay for deputies with impact fees, even though that's a cost of growth. So again, as we look at the budget as a whole, and we figure out how we're going to what money is fungible and which monies are not, and how we're going to dedicate them, it's important to not look at these things completely in silos.
Thank you.
Just wanted to add, Tony, I think that's the whole point, is that we're trying to find a process that makes it more fair, and somewhere down the middle that we're collecting these, but we're not ping-ponging back and forth between rates, because now we're over, now we're trying to get back under.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything else, Nothing more than that? Anything else, Helena?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more public comments. All right, we're moving on to item 4, the presentation strategic action plan dashboard demonstration. We got Ms. Johnston on here as the demonstrator. You're going to take care of it, Brittany?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Brittany Kershaw, your Director of Communications and Marketing. And I am joined by Zach Bauer from our IT department, and he is our programming wizard. Official title.
I didn't have the sheriff's either.
Let me pull up our city website so you can see it. Okay. So today we're here to show you an exciting new tool that's going to help provide even more transparency to both you, City Council, and to the general public. And we're going to introduce you to the new Strategic Action Plan dashboard. This is a public-facing tool built entirely in-house by our incredible team, namely Zach, who's going to walk you through the dashboard, and Cynthia Schweers, who is our customer service manager, as well as a lot of additional staff who have helped make this successful. It is built to keep residents, staff, and council informed on your 11 strategic action plan priorities. And the dashboard is easily accessible by visiting our city website, palmcoast.gov. And if you scroll to the bottom of the website, you'll see our tiles at the bottom. And the SAP priorities tile is the one that'll take you to that new website. So once you get there, there's a walkthrough video that takes you through our fiscal year 2025 budget. And it shows how your strategic action plan priorities have funding decisions attached to them. And this is for the current fiscal year, and once you adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget, the video will be updated to show those new data points. There's also additional supporting materials. It has our vision and values and our mission statement. It also has your 2024 to 2028 City Council SAP packet, which has all of the priorities and some additional information. It has the most recent annual progress report. It has your legislative priorities, and it also has the ability to view some accomplishments by department on that page. But the main event that we wanted to show you today is your pillars of priorities. You have 4 pillars that each of these priorities fall into. And so these pillars are clickable, and once you click into them, you'll be able to see the different objectives for each of those pillars. So each objective has some strategies and tactics attached to it, and it breaks down each objective clearly so that you can see through the status bar the progress. It is important to note that most of these objectives were adopted just this summer, and they align with the fiscal year 2026 budget, so you will see that some don't have a lot of progress at this point, but that is because they are for fiscal year 2026. So I'm going to let Zach talk you through some of the functionality of the dashboard.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. Zach Bauer, IT Senior Programmer. Basically, we sat with all of our departments and determined that making something in-house would be the best decision for efficiency. And going along with efficiency, we came to a conclusion that we wanted a software where the different departments are able to update quarterly or sooner to continue that transparency to citizens. And so doing so, how it works in the back end is that citizens or city staff is able to update quarterly, and that will automatically generate a AI automated summary of that tactic. So we're leveraging some really cool technology in doing so. So if we scroll down to some of these tactics, you can see that based off of everyone's city staff's, what they inputted towards each tactic, you can see a summary for that, so and the progress related to that. So each one of these you can click into and see that each kind of tile has a percentage associated to it, as well as the progress that is aligned with that certain tactic. So it's sorted by your overall goal of this, your pillar, and then you have your objectives, and then your strategies, and then each tactic that goes along with that strategy. And so you can see an overall view of that, the current average progress related to that, as well as just kind of an overall view of the entire progress of your SAP priorities. The next phase of this, we're hoping to bring in KPIs. And so with that, we're going to meet with all the different departments and set up automation to occur. So as city staff is implementing KPIs and hitting those metrics, we're going to be able to display that automatically through a dashboard similar to this. I think that's all I had. I don't know if you had anything.
No, I think this is just another way to show the public and for you, City Council, to stay on top of where we're at with these. I know a lot of these are talked about in these council meetings, but having an access point that you can view at any time, I think is beneficial to both you and the public. So your charter review committee is one of those. So you'll see that you've formulated your committee now, and then the next step will be that they're going to facilitate some public input opportunities, and then eventually that team will present their findings to you, City Council, for recommendations. So just one example of how you can track these objectives throughout the process and have it public facing so that the community knows where we're at with these different priorities.
I just have one.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, being old-fashioned. Is it always going to say if something is AI generated? We'll always have that little thing that says AI generated?
So we wanted to add a disclaimer because with AI, you don't know exactly what's going to kind of spit out. We've added a lot of measures into that, and so if it is AI generated, it will display it. Okay. How that works is that city staff will import their progress updates, and they're always monitoring that. And so while they are inputting the update, they can edit the AI summary or approve it or deny it, whatever, and change it appropriately according to that. If you do click on the AI generated button, it will kind of illustrate that this is a summary made from AI, and just to kind of take it with kind of a grain of salt in a way. And of course, if you want any changes to that, as far as city staff can go in and change that summary when they go and update the progress.
Anything else?
If that answered your question.
So those are generated from progress notes that our staff
Correct.
are writing into a specific strategy, and then it's a summary of those based on
Correct.
AI.
Yep. And it only will come from that, so it won't take context outside of what the notes are. It'll
It's
only
not coming from
summarize.
the web or
Correct.
something like that. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I think I like to see that we're using AI. I don't want to be completely dependent on it. Obviously, I'm glad to hear that it's coming from your notes, but I think that we have to move in that direction in order to be the most efficient, in the most efficient way possible. I think this is fantastic. Thank you for doing this. Our strategic action plan literally dictates the larger projects that we're focusing on and how the budget is affected by those projects. So this is super important. Additionally, we've had people ask, how do I get this done? How do I get that done? How do I put this on council's radar? There's so many different things that the residents want. A lot of times it really does start with our strategic action plan. So I think this is just a great tool. Thank you for doing this. Have we let the public know about this yet?
We're test driving it to you today, and it'll
Okay.
be announced to the public this afternoon.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh, I agree, it's a fantastic thing, I just like a little bit
I
of
understand. It's
control.
weird. It is weird to see that little toggle there. Yeah.
I think,
I don't know if there are legal aspects of that. In other words, if something is put in there that's AI generated and then somebody challenges it legally or something, is there anything different ways that would be handled?
It's going to be fact specific, but working with them, it is a good idea to have it that AI generated so people are knowing that. So I would support what they're doing.
Thank you, guys. The only thing, as a follow-up on AI, it's like in the Army, because I was a field artillery officer. And in fire directions, you might know a little bit about this, Mr. Duffy. Fire direction, you have to put in a bunch of data, right? You got to make sure, your angle and all that. But our saying was always garbage in, garbage out. So if the data's bad going in, it's going to be bad coming out. So we just have to be aware of that. What AI generated photos, what they're having problems with hands, they can't, anybody heard that? They can't master the
They'll
human
fix it,
hand.
they'll fix it though.
Okay, Ms. Kershaw, Zach, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
We'll open it up for public comment. Don't go anywhere real quick. You got anything, Mr. Webb? Tony?
It's only, I've had this conversation with her and they're working on it, but for clarification purposes, Mark Webb, Palm Coast, the Connect and these new things are not mobile app friendly at this point. It needs to be, you need to be on your robust laptop to access, because I just tried to do it, and many apps that we're faced with that we use every day that we want to use and we're on your phone don't work because there's a whole different driven mechanism. So communicating the access and how to use our Connect website should follow up with on your laptop or your computer. Now, I know they have some exciting things coming by the end of the year to resolve some of this, and the work these guys are doing are phenomenal, and they're finally reaching my age group, so thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Webb. Seeing no one else come forward, we'll bring it back to Dust. Any closing comments for?
So our web development is Salesforce-based?
So we use Salesforce in the back end for case management, but all of our, as far as like the main website and everything is programmed in-house.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just confused because Salesforce obviously has built-in mobile functionality and things like that, so I would have expected it to be automatic, so to speak, out of box. That's all.
When we develop our app, and I know we're kind of rolling it out in parts, so the app part portion that's going to be rolled out by the end of this year isn't the fully built-out app, but will the SAP be available through the app eventually? Is that a plan?
Yeah, I think eventually once we roll into different phases of the app, we'll probably get to the point where we'll implement like internal pages, forms, SAP priorities. I think we're going to kind of implement that into our workflows. So anything we're adding to our website, we're also kind of adding it to the app, but I don't think we're at that point yet. But once we obviously, get the app rolling and out, and that's our goal.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Ms. Kershaw, Zach.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
We'll move on to 5 resolution. You want to read that one, Mr. Duffy, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We have a resolution for 2025 approving the Community Development Block Grant Federal Fiscal Year 2025 Annual Action Plan.
CBG.
Yes, sir, Mr. Papa.
Thank you.
And Jackie.
Good morning, Mayor and members of City Council. Jose Papa for the Community Development Department, along with Jackie Gonzalez, also with the Community Development Department. And the item we have for you today is something that we do on an annual basis, and that's related to our Community Development Block Grant Program. Knowing that there are members of council who may not have seen an annual action plan before, we will provide some background on CDBG and what is in the annual action plan, and move on from there with the recommendation that we received from the Citizens Advisory Task Force. So the CDBG program was started history in 1974, and it's to provide funding for community development. It's not necessarily a housing program. It's for community development, which allows a lot of discretion to the grantees on CDBG activities that may be funded. But the activities, of course, must meet one of the national objectives of the program, and these are three. One, it's there to benefit low and moderate income persons or a low and moderate income area. It is there to prevent or eliminate slum or blight. And three, in cases of a nationally declared emergency, CDBG funds may be used to address those urgent community development needs. In order to receive CDBG funding, we need to complete the following. Consolidated strategic plan, and this is it's a 5-year document, or it's good for 5 years, but it provides data and analysis on the conditions in the community regarding many different things, housing needs, the number of homeless people, any public service needs that may exist. So that's all becomes part of that consolidated plan. The next one, I believe, is due in 2027. So that was, the last one we had was adopted in 2022. But moving on, every year, based on that consolidated action plan, what's in front of us today, and that's the annual action plan. And this is basically a budget that establishes, with the allocation that we are to receive from the federal government through HUD, this is our statement of how are we going to use those funds. And that, again, that's the annual action plan. Other documents would include the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, which is done really as a precursor to the consolidated action plan. And every year in December, we present the comprehensive annual performance and evaluation report, basically an end-of-year report that covers the use of CDBG funds within the past fiscal year. So some example of projects and programs that have used CDBG funds, fairly common throughout the country. Housing-related activities, public services, but it's always limited to 15% of the grant allocation. It's been used for economic development. Typically when you have slum or blighted areas, that's when that economic development opportunity comes in. Infrastructure improvement, but again, only within a qualified area, a low moderate income census tract, and again, it must benefit that one particular area and not necessarily spread through a citywide system. Finally, the planning administration monitoring of the program, and that would be limited to 20% of allocation. So within the city, the allocations of CDBG funds have been used for the following. Our housing rehabilitation activities, which includes the monitoring of that program, is funded through CDBG. We have a first-time home buyers program, and historically we've allocated the maximum allowable amount for public service activities, which is 15%. And that 15% has gone to the public service mini-grant programs, where a nonprofit, and in this case, Family Life Center and Flagler Cares have been beneficiaries of that public service grant program. And it also helps to fund the city's summer camp program. And finally, a portion of the funds.
That's the scholarships for the summer camp.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Specific students.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
And the last bullet there is to allocate the funds for cover general administration. That's for compliance with CDBG rules and requirements. That includes a public notice that we put in the paper, public outreach to advertise the availability of programs. It does also pay for staff salary, but only during that time where we where we are working on CDBG-related items. So the allocation for the upcoming year is $462,211. And the allocation, as approved by the Citizens Advisory Task Force, follows historically what we've done with the activities that we have available. The bulk of the funding going through the financial assistance for home repair. Again, these are single-family owner-occupied homes. The first-time home buyers program. Again, for the public service activities, we're allocating the maximum 15%. That's about $69,000.
What does that entail, the public service grant?
Sure. That's open to all nonprofits, and it has to be for an activity again, the beneficiaries, again, must be low, moderate income persons or low, moderate income households. And typically, with Family Life Center, it goes to victims of domestic abuse.
Okay.
That's one example. For Flagler Cares, they offer emergency utility or rental assistance, and typically that's where their funding goes to. So this counts for only a small portion of what they have. They have other funding sources where they're able to offer emergency rent or emergency utility payments, and that's where their funding goes to. And as you mentioned, the summer camp program is there, and finally, the allocation for planning and administration of the program to cover staff salaries and other costs.
Would you mind going back for just one slide?
Yes,
Are we finding historically that this allocation is the best use of the monies? Like this percentage? In other words, are we seeing that first-time home buyers are taking advantage of the allocated funds?
Yes, ma'am, they are. If the 50,000, if we find that during the year it's been eaten up, like I think I've mentioned this before, we can come back to council, well, through CATF first, and maybe reallocate some funds. But also, sometimes we have a clawback item with home repair, where if they sold the house before the quiet lien is up, we'd recover the assistance that they get. So with the annual action plan, we've made a statement that we could use those funds that we recover from there to go back into the housing program. And typically, it would be for either the financial assistance or the first-time home buyers program.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
I just had
Go right ahead,
one question, and this is personal for me. I've seen in my past, in the last 8 years, there was something about CBDG is dependent on the county population and size, things like that, and needs. Is there any restrictions that way?
So, yeah, CDBG allocations are based on population. I mean, the formula is not straightforward, just population. They take into account, and I'll repeat, I don't know the entire formula for how it's allocated, but it takes into account the poverty rate, the percentage of low, moderate income households, and of course, the total general population.
Do we have to provide that information? In other words, do we have to justify our money that way?
No, sir.
Those determinations?
It's determined by HUD. I know that they probably have a formula somewhere that allocates those funds.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought there was something
there. There is a small, and I know you come from the county, and there is a small cities program that's available for non-entitlement communities. Would be like unincorporated Flagler County, Bunnell, or even Flagler Beach. And those are sometimes based on what the state gets. You apply through the state. So just to wrap up our presentation, this plan has been made available for a 30-day comment period. I believe that expires in 2 days. We're here at the public workshop to give you a preview of what's in the plan. And we will go to a public hearing at your first August public business meeting. And that would allow us to meet our submittal deadline to HUD, which is 45 days before the start of our fiscal year. So by August 16th, we need to submit this through the HUD portal. And as I mentioned before, the Citizens Advisory Task Force did hold a public hearing on this and a public workshop in June, and they've recommended that the City Council approve the proposed CDBG annual action plan when it comes to you at your business meeting. And that concludes staff presentation, and Jackie and I are here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Papa. Anything else from the
Yes, sir.
guys?
Just wanted to, did we get, in terms of the 30-day comment period, have we received any commentary?
Typically, no, we have not at this time, yes.
Is there anything like that we've identified as, I think to the Vice Mayor's point, something we can change or do better? You know, I know we're somewhat limited by the funding, right? But are we trying anything new? Are we attempting to reach, you know, disadvantaged populations that maybe this funding or previous funding did not cover?
I will let Jackie sort of address that. And how we do public outreach, I think we provide a robust public outreach to try to reach all residents.
And currently, we have actually created a couple of new programs which will come before you in November. One of them being working with HUD, we created a point buy-down program. It'll be the first one in the Central Florida area that will help first-time home buyers, not only just with down payment assistance, but able to buy their points down, which will actually be a sustainable 30-year period discount on their mortgage by allowing them to buy down that interest rate by 1 point. And so we'll be the first city trying it. They're really excited about it in Jacksonville at the HUD office that we are actually attempting to do this. Other counties, other cities and states do it. We're the only one in the Central Florida area that's going to actually roll this out as an advantage. So it will come before the board. It went to CATF. They wanted me to tweak it a little bit before I brought it to you guys. So we're going to tweak it and bring it back in November.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Nope. Thank you, Mr. Pop.
Thank
Ms. Jackie. Stand by. Let's open this up for public comment. Mr. Webb? No, sir. Mr. Tony? No, sir. All right, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our final public comment. Mr. Webb, Mr. Tony?
Mark Webb, Palm Coast. A couple of cleanup issues. The citizens are still very concerned and vocal about what's happening with the library in Palm Coast. The commissioner in his comment said that of all the decisions they're making, the one of most concern is the reduction in the hours of the most used library, which is Palm Coast. I had heard in the last meeting that there was a planned, if not already happened, a meeting, a conversation between the county and the city to come up with some type of goals or objective. The citizens are waiting. I'm sure that in your upcoming town hall and your upcoming town hall, that question is going to be asked because it is highly used, very beneficial, and has an impact on public safety. So I just wanted to bring up that. And also, recently in the Flagler Live, and I was with some people at the Bunnell City meeting, and the conversation popped up by the Bunnell City attorney talking about SB 180. And I think that's a very hard answer. It's going to come up. People want to know what and how it's going to impact and what that looks like for our future. And so I just want to let you know that there are citizens that are already in the wings wondering what is this going to do for the goals and objectives. And I know the Vice Mayor is constantly pointing that we no longer only have one hand tied behind our back and our goals to run this city to the needs of the citizens. Now we have both tied. So it is frustrating. So I wanted to bring up those two line items for conversation purposes. Thank you for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Seeing no one else come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Closing discussion, unless anybody wants to address that. That's a major issue.
Yep.
It's 180, right?
Yeah, I was actually going to, in my council comments, bring up SB 180 and try to get consensus from this council to direct staff that any proposed changes that they feel we would need to make to our LDC, our comp plan, I don't think there's any in the comp plan, but land development code or any internal policies and procedures, that they come before city council to discuss. Because I know there's already started litigation from other cities and counties who are basically saying, no, we're not doing that. And if you want us to do that, then you can go ahead and sue us, building community or whatever. I'm not necessarily saying that we should do that, but I think that any changes that staff feels need to be made before they just do that administratively. They need to come before this council and discuss before this council. And we need to do a cost-benefit analysis, look around the state, look at the litigation that could be already in process around the state, see what other cities and counties are doing before staff just makes any of those changes. Because I have grave concerns over the implications of Senate Bill 180. I do not think it's in its final form. I do think at least a large part of it will be amended or repealed. So what I don't want to see is our organization make any knee-jerk reactions immediately in response to that bill.
I think you have consensus for that.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, yes, I agree totally on this. It is serious. But let's not forget League of Cities, the county organization, Northeast Florida Regional Council. This is big enough that we're going to need all those organizations pushing to make sure we don't just totally disrupt our normal processes for approving for new development and all that. I mean, it is a serious issue, but I think we're going to need, we're not going to be able to pull this off on our own. We're gonna need a lot of support because we're fighting. We're really fighting
it's already
City
been
Hall.
mobilized. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's some cities that have basically said, we're not adhering to 180.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna work out for them, but there are some cities that are taking that stance.
Well, I did come, that was last week, right, Mr. Tyner, when they had the planning board? I came and I asked to speak to the planning board because they are like our line of defense administratively as far as things going on and what's being pushed forward. And I emphasize to the planning board that our situation is not going away. And that is our primary concern. And they need to, and I even suggested they go back and watch the city council meeting, I think it was March 7th, when we discussed, exactly how we got here. And that they have to be well aware of what's going on in our city. So hopefully that will help out a little bit.
Well, their hands are tied too, legally.
Yeah, I mean, there's still property rights. There's people there are certain landowners that have certain entitlements that we have to respect. It's when we get into variances, density increases, zoning changes. Those are the things that they have the ability to be a line of defense on. And they need to. Yeah, so to your, just to more fine tune what you're trying to emphasize, Mayor, it's really important that those are the things that we be mindful of. But I think that as we look at Senate Bill 180 and as staff, and I know Michael Hansen is probably all over this, this is definitely his cup of tea, just making sure that, again, we're not bending a knee to this, essentially. Yeah.
No, you have my consent as well. Yeah.
That's the same reason I mentioned about the Hyatt, what is it?
The Ritz.
The Ritz. That's something we have to be aware of because we're going to have to support that. And we need to know those impacts to our community. All right, you got anything else, Mr. Sullivan, Vice Mayor? We'll move on to discussions matter, not on the agenda.
Thank you. I have to give a shout out to a staff member. Let me read the comment from the resident. It says, if you could give Daniel from Utility a shout out. He was out in the K section working on the boxes in people's yards. I offered him some water, and in return, he supplied me with some educational materials on how to keep up with our swales and prevent damages to the boxes and pipes in the yards. So a resident just wanted me to let Daniel know that, A, appreciate the hard work out in the field, and B, thank you for continuing onward and educating our residents on how to better care for our overall system and do their part.
Is that the Danny, Matt, that squared away over on, over by Walmart, that drainage issue we had over there? Is that the same Danny? Matt Mansell.
He's talking to Chief
Oh.
Granville, trying to
I
figure
think he's trying to figure it out.
I'm sorry, is that the same Danny that cleared that drain over on Cypress?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, no worries. I was going to say, this man is everywhere. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to add, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to add, since Mr. Webb brought it up, Thursday, I have a town hall, Southern Recreation Center, 5 p.m. So I know the two gentlemen in the audience are aware of it, but for anybody out there listening or watching, please RSVP if you can, but it's open to all. It'll be fairly informal, mostly Q&A session, so conversational. Trying to get as much information out there as possible about what we're doing in the city, so please come.
Thank you, sir.
Just, I did know, since Lauren's not here, I did notice that we did submit our Doge report on time, and I think that's, another step in that process of the checking out what we're doing.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I know most of us would prefer a quick response, but they're pouring through a ton of data from hundreds
I
of cities.
just wonder
and
who is
stuff
getting
like
all that information
Yeah.
up in
my understanding
I hope
is
they have
it's
a cast of
some
thousands
treasury
of people
people.
to go through it
Yeah,
all.
I think it's some treasury people that have been retasked for
Right.
this.
I'm sure they'll go through every detail.
For me to close it out real quick, just quickly, I was informed about them requiring non-disclosure agreements at the FC3. And I don't know if you're tracking that, Vice Mayor, anything that's going on, and if that's legal and what kind of implication that has for us and
Yeah.
our grant funding.
So even before that was circulated, I was already looking into a few things as far as how FC3 was formed. It was formed beneath Florida Statute 265.32. So they are bound to certain regulations and laws. And I am working with Mr. Duffy and with Mr. Moylan on making sure FC3 is fully compliant beneath the TDC. So if you could just give a little bit of breathing room over the next few days to make sure I get that sorted out with them, because I think some education needs to occur as far as how they operate. And so we're working, trying to work collaboratively to make sure they're operating the way that they should be and that they understand how they were created and for what purpose and what they're bound to. So yes, I am, I understand what your issue is, and I'm working on that.
This is sunshine related?
Could be, yes.
Well, that's a lot of, there's a lot of different facets to it. So-
Yeah, no, I understand. I know that there has been some contention on whether they are required to adhere to sunshine.
Let me add a little bit to that. So under our contract FC3, what they do for us, it would not be considered sunshine related. However, what they do with the county, and like Ms. Pontier said,
As the arts,
under
I
the
forget what the
Florida
term is.
Statute 265, that could be considered sunshine related. So that's what we're working to make sure that's cleared up.
Okay.
And I'd like to know if we could get consensus among the council. I had 3 gentlemen come to see me about the food trucks. So I'd like us to take a look, see what regulations we have that govern how they operate in the city and on private property.
What was their issue with the food trucks?
But their issue is they're starving because they can't get out and do their business.
Oh, as in restricted locations, things like that? Okay.
Currently, from what Ms. Grossman sent me, they're not allowed anywhere in the city unless it's, like right here.
I know I've had.
When it comes to private property, that's where we need to, like, for me, say Kohl's. Say if Kohl's knew someone that owned a food truck or a couple of food trucks, and I said, okay, you can come up and set up in our parking lot, out of the way, it's not obstructing traffic, it's not impeding anything. I think we need to look at it, because these guys, they are very vocal, and we are very restrictive.
I would agree with looking at it. I think part of the issue is So for instance, you develop a shopping center and you have kind of like commercial spaces laid out and you say, we're gonna have one restaurant here. So that restaurant has basically bought the rights to be the only restaurant in that shopping center, and then
But that's
next
an-
week a
that's
food truck pops up behind them, so they're directly competing, or coffee or other, other types of things. So there is some legal aspect there that I'm not like an expert on, but we need to consider that as well.
That's a private association thing, though. So in other words, if you've got a shopping center and there are certain rights that are like if one owner owns a shopping center and they say, okay, Longhorn Steakhouse, you can be here, and nobody, that's a private association thing. So that food truck would not be permitted by that association to be there. But outside of that, yeah, I agree. I think that we should look at it.
We should look at it and
Yeah.
we should understand
I
everything.
agree too, and I did notice during the reconstruction of the Village Center in Grand Haven, we were having a food truck there every week. And so at least that was a little help, but maybe there are things like that we could look at that might help a little.
I know there was some discussion at one point, Lauren's not here, but there was some discussion about forwarding or creating kind of as part of the town center, that arts district area, kind of like a pad for food trucks specifically, where people know they can go get food at food trucks at that location. Kind of like Food Truck Tuesday, but permanent, that you can always kind of find a spot there.
Food trucks out at the county offices.
Yeah. She's working with Douglas on that.
Yeah, I think they have some CDD funds or something that they have to use for improvements.
I think this was along the same lines that Texas Roadhouse and their farmers market was running.
Yes,
into.
yeah.
The people that owned and were liable for that
Association.
entire property, the association.
They don't
were
want
the
people
ones that said,
competing, yeah.
Right.
But if you own your property individually, say Lowe's or Home Depot, and, I just think we need to take a look at it.
Yeah, we can
Rod
absolutely
in the
take a
hot
look
dog
at it.
stand at Home Depot?
Yeah.
That's right.
But food.
So I can get direction for staff, and I look at this. The direction I hear that you would like is, more allowable use of food trucks in the city of Palm Coast. Vendors, okay.
Because and as I told those guys, and I said it a lot, small businesses sustained this city during the hard times. And everyone popped up, and the foodie craze is real. It's out, I won't say California, Washington, but states like that, pop-up food truck, who wouldn't love to have some tamales or something pop up here and there? But if that's enough guidance, Mr. Duffy.
There's
we
food
know-
trucks with Michelin stars.
There you go.
Oh, I love me a food
Exactly.
truck.
And the other thing I'd like us to look at, if possible, is about these developments that are being cleared and burning on site. If it's possible for us to put it in the land development code, then, well, I know you're shaking your head because of state and the fire marshal, the fire service
It's all
monitors.
preempted. I even got a letter from the Attorney General.
Okay, all right. People are complaining about
No, they're
large
valid
burns.
complaint. Ms. Pontieri looked
Yeah,
at it.
I've looked at this extensively.
Yeah.
Chief Berryhill and I worked together on this, really. But to your point, Mayor, in the LDC, I do think that there are certain things that we can do, like require silt screens and things like that to prevent some of the ash and stuff like that that is affecting neighboring properties. So maybe we use that direction rather than, because we can't prevent pile burning. We can't do that, but there could be something that we can do to mitigate the effects on neighboring properties when that's occurring.
I think I recall
what you
during
wanna look at.
during the campaign last summer, the town center spots that were being cleared, residents were literally calling and saying, "Hey, the forest is on fire," and it's like, no, it's actually just this development over here. But it was occurring, almost daily, essentially.
But if we could do that, if you
So
could,
you're looking for I don't want to diminish it, but screen protectors between the neighboring properties?
Well, I think any mechanisms that we can do while there's pile burning going on to protect neighboring properties, is that what you're, mitigation?
Weather
yeah.
forecasting, winds,
Yeah.
and things like that.
So I'll look into it, but I do think that is all covered by the Florida Forest
statute.
Service, right, Chief? Am I saying that right?
Kyle Berryhill, Palm Coast Fire Department. Yeah, that's correct. The Florida Forest Service, what we've discovered, both we discovered it quickly and over a long period of time, is that the Florida Forest Service is reserved the right to regulate land development clearing, pile burning. The residents that are impacted, we do work pretty strongly with the Florida Forest Service supervisor, who knows our community and helps to provide guidance to the burners. And so the local burners, they do a really good job of recognizing what's best practices and where certain neighborhoods where they're like, you know, it's better to do something other than that in this neighborhood. And so then sometimes though there's burners from out of our community, and that's when it gets a little bit different. Another area where we've attempted to get ahead of this is just, you know, through our pre-development processes, is just asking the projects to tell us what they plan to do with the land clearing debris. And if they ask us what we recommend, we can recommend something, right? We can't require anything because that's required by the Florida Forest Service. So Community Development, Ray and his team have done a really good job of trying to push on that. And the other thing that does occur though when there's burning is anything that occurs related to that development becomes attributed to the burning because you can smell it. It's a noticeable change to your life in addition to the change to what your eyes were just seeing, right? So when we have a little bit drier times or we go a couple weeks without rain, the construction dust, all the dirt and all those things, kind of everything becomes, you know, products of combustion for the resident. And it's not always that. And definitely there are times where we have that kind of an impact, and we do everything we can to increase our patrols in that area and kind of keep an eye to make sure that everything's safe and constantly working with the Florida Forest Service. In fact, in addition to that, we've tasked our prevention division with checking these pile burns. And whenever anything is out of our understanding of what's supposed to occur, we call the Florida Forest Service, who's very quick to respond and make sure things come back into compliance.
All right, Chief. Do they give you enough lead time that you could push it out on social media that, hey, this area is they're going to be doing pile burns? You don't have enough lead time to do that?
So yes and no. The Florida Forest Service absolutely restricts burning based on the weather. So on a good burn day, they will, in fact, something that we've kind of worked together on a strategy on is on a day where we have good dispersion and low fire risk, so the smoke is going up and away. We try to get as many piles done as we can. Yes and no, but certainly we could attempt to do that. Again, double-edged sword, Mayor. Sometimes the more eyes we draw to it, and neighborhoods don't even know. We'll get a couple of calls. We'll go through a neighborhood. I knocked on doors a year or two ago when we were talking about this. There was some questions about the Seminole Woods community that was going in, and a bunch of people didn't even know. I was just driving around that area, seeing what I could smell. People were working in their yard, checking in, and lots of people didn't know. But the people who do, right? So double-edged sword there, Mayor, but we certainly are always, when we get a plethora of calls, we try to take action to say, hey, you know, a smell of smoke in your neighborhood is normal today, but please call us if you see flames. Right, we try to make a change to, because our residents are primed to call if they believe there's a wildfire.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That's all I had. Yeah, the food truck thing, those guys are getting fired up about that.
I've had a couple call me as well at some point.
I had a meeting with 3 of them, and they have some issue with it. You got anything, Mr.
No, sir.
Duffy?
No, sir.
We're done for today?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a good day, everyone.
Alrighty.